everyone, and welcome back to yet another Candid Conversations with a Housewife. I am your favorite housewife, Mrs. Jenny. And friends, I do apologize for the delay last week, but it is well worth the wait. And so, being that you're here, everybody get strapped in, get ready for some very good content. Hello, Catalea. Always good to have you over here. Don, okay, with his trademark, I was never here, and Milani. So, all right, we love to see people who are ready to jump right in, right on time. All right. And so, as you can tell by the title, today we're going to be talking about marriage obligations. This is a very interesting topic, I feel, because when it comes to marriage obligations or relationship obligations, that is, we often find that men are taught, or, boys and men, are taught how to treat women, um, and women are taught what to expect from men, but women are not taught how to treat men. They're just taught what to expect from men. And so, what should men expect from women? And then especially when it comes to the confines of marriage, what should be expected of either party? Are there things that men are supposed to do? Are there things that women are supposed to do? Are there things that coincide between both parties? What should marriage look like? So many women, I see all these types of videos now of these wives who are just proudly boasting on the internet about what they don't do for their husband. And first off, I think that's really cringy because it's just like, why would you get up on the internet? Like Coach Greg Adams says, why did you get up on Al Gore's internet and start talking about all the things that you don't do for your husband and glorifying all the ways that you don't serve your husband? And it's like, if a man did that, they would say that he's lazy and selfish and weaponized incompetence and all this stuff. And it's like, at the end of the day, the things that they list are kind of ridiculous because they'll say, oh, well, I cook for me and my kids, but I don't cook for my husband. I go shopping for my kids and I, but I don't shop for my husband. I do the laundry for my kids and I don't do my husband's laundry. So you really mean to tell me that you take the laundry hamper out of your bedroom, because I'm assuming that there's a laundry hamper in their bedroom and then one in the kids' bedroom, and you intentionally, I mean, listen to these people. These women go out of their way to take the husband's clothes out of the hamper or to not put them in the washing machine when they're doing the rest of the laundry. Like, it just seems like you're doing a lot of effort to not serve your husband, which is crazy. Because if you're making lasagna for you and your kids, why can't your husband have any? Anyways, we can talk about that. If anybody wants to come up here later, we can drop the link for that. But let's just talk about some things that I believe, and I asked on my community tab 2 weeks ago, my viewers to let me know some things that they think are obligations in marriage. And then we're going to get down to the nitty gritty about what God's word says are marriage obligations. Okay. So, forget all that talk and that hot air, let's get down to what the Bible says at the end. And so, in my personal opinion, I'm still a marriage novice, I would say. I'm going into 4 years. 2025 will make 4 years of marriage. So we're kind of like 3.5 years in. And so still plenty to learn. But I would say that I have a pretty healthy marriage. My husband and I, we trust each other. We get along pretty well. And so I like to think that I know what I'm talking about. But I know that we have a long way to go. And so I would say that some things that would be obligations are, for one, communication. I think that it's very important to have proper communication, have open communication when it comes to, number one, finances, and how we feel about each other, how we feel about the relationship as a whole. And I was just talking to my husband about this last night, actually. And I was saying how, I watch these videos online and I'm pretty active in the manosphere. I watch male-oriented content because I like to hear about what men think about relationships and hear the plight of men because it goes under the radar a lot of the time. And what I find is that a lot of men, they never fully expose themselves to their wife. Like they're never fully transparent with their wife. They could be married for maybe 10, 15, or 20 years, and their wife will not be privy to their really deepest, most heartfelt emotions and thoughts and desires. And they just feel like they can't tell their wife certain things, in any regard, like they can't tell their wife that maybe they want to quit their job and start their own business because they feel like their wife will ridicule them. Or they can't tell her maybe what they desire for her to do in the bedroom, or they feel like they can't tell her about, dreams or goals or aspirations that they have because, she won't understand or she'll, look down on them. And so a lot of men keep their wife, not their girlfriend, but their wife, like at arm's distance. And I was talking to my husband about that, and I was saying that, I feel like you really trust me, There's a Bible verse that we're going to get to later that talks about that, the Proverbs 31 woman, it says that her husband does safely trust in her. Um, and so I try to be a safe place for my husband, because so many men, they don't feel like they have a safe place to go to. They might have a good friend, they might have a really close friend that they can talk to, and praise God if that's the case. And he can fully be himself around his friend. But even a lot of men don't have that. We're living in a very lonely time, and so I'm just so thankful that I was telling my husband, I was like, I really feel like you trust me, and he was like, I do. And I was telling him, I was like, I don't ever want to take that for granted. I don't ever want to abuse your trust because I feel like, you really confide in me, and, he tells me things that I don't even really feel like I need to know. But he just feels like he can tell me that and be transparent with me. And I love that. And so I think that, having open communication, and I feel the same way too. Okay. I want to mention that as well before people start speculating. I feel like I can fully trust my husband as well. And I just ramble on about things that pop into my head all the time. And he's just like, okay. And sometimes actually I'll tell him things and I forget and he remembers them. Like the other day, I was telling him how I was like, I've never really seen a car accident happen before. You might pull up to, you drive on the road and you see the aftermath of an accident, but I was like, I've never actually seen an accident happen right in front of me. And he was like, yes, you have. You told me about this time that you saw this kid flip out of his car and this other time. And I was like, oh yeah, I forgot about that. And I'm like, you listen to me? And he's like, what else am I going to do? And so, yes, so I trust my husband as well. But I would say that that's probably one of the number one things that should be an obligation in your marriage. Your spouse should be able to trust in you, to put their faith in you, confidence in you, and to know that the things that they tell you are not, going to be all over town, and that you're not going to, I'm not going to say that you're not going to judge them, because if they say something crazy, then then you might judge them. But just to know that they can talk to you, because my husband, he'll tell me things, he'll run ideas by me, and I might tell him, I think this is a bad idea. I don't agree with this. I think you're kind of out to lunch right here. But then I can give him, a solution that I think or an opposite, opinion, and he knows that I'm not just gonna ridicule him and tell him that he's stupid and just be harsh. I'm gonna be like, okay, that's interesting. Let's mull this over a little bit more. If he says something that I think is kind of wacky. But so I would say that is probably the most important thing in a relationship, in a marriage, I guess, when it comes to how you guys feel about each other. We're gonna get into other things that are extremely important as well. But that was kind of like the first thing that came to mind when I thought about things that should be obligation, especially when it comes to both parties. There are certain things that I believe the wife should do, and that should be duties on her part. And then there's things that the man should do. But when it comes to communication, that should be a two-way street. And so to get into some of the comments that I got on my post that I did on my community tab. And so if you're sub to me, which, come on now, you should be sub to Mrs. Jenny, then I listed over there. And so the first one that we got is from one of my subs named Abraham. And he said that the man should be the leader and provider, and that the woman should be the keeper of the home. Okay. And so he's like me, he's very traditional. And so that I kind of knew that would be where he's coming from. And so, yeah, I totally agree with that. I think that it should be the responsibility of the man to provide and lead his household. The man shouldn't try to offload leadership and provision on his wife. I've watched a lot of videos about daycare and why daycare is bad and why you shouldn't put your kids in daycare, and that's a whole separate thing. But I watch these videos about it, and women talk about it, and they'll write into these women who have these podcasts or whatever, and they'll say, "Oh, well, since I've been watching your podcast, I've realized how bad daycare is, and I realized that I need to stay at home with my kids, and I've realized that I want to be a stay-at-home wife, and I think that's going to be the best for my kids, for them to flourish. But my husband wants me to stay at work. My husband doesn't want me to quit my job. My husband says that we're not going to be able to afford our lifestyle if I stop working. What should I do?" And it's always so sad when I hear that, and it's like, your wife is trying to pivot to make a better decision for your family as a whole, for your children. And a lot of these men, they're such lackluster providers, they're such limp-wristed providers that they're going to be like, "No, you can't leave your job. How are we going to go to the Hamptons in the summertime if you leave your job? How are we going to afford our Cybertruck if you leave your job? What are you thinking?" And it's like, I think that at the end of the day, it is the man's responsibility to provide financially for the home. Okay. And we're going to get into that a little bit more, but absolutely. So when it comes to man's role, Abraham says that it is to be a leader and a provider. And then, for women, it's to be a keeper of the home. And so I was watching this video about clean talk, which is the side or the subdivision of TikTok videos where people clean their houses. And people are advocating for scrub daddies and cedar mops and all that different stuff. Like, if you just go down that rabbit hole and you'll just watch people clean their house, clean their bathroom, clean their garage, organize and all this different stuff. So it's called clean talk. And I was watching a video about that, and the girl, she was talking about how we've kind of made cleaning a classist issue, and how cleaning is seen as a upper class thing, like it's a luxury symbol to be able to just buy all these different assortment of products and clean your house and have a spotless house and all this stuff and all this kind of stuff. And so, I mean, some of it I took with a grain of salt, but she mentioned something that I thought was interesting, which is that when a woman has a dirty house, even if she has a husband who lives there, she will be the one who's judged on having the dirty house. And I couldn't agree more. If I go into someone's house, if I go into a woman's house and, she's married or whatever, or she has kids or what have you, and I see that she has a dirty house, I'm going to think, why is she shirking her responsibility? Why is she not cleaning her house? I'm not going to think, why aren't they cleaning their house? Why isn't the husband cleaning the house? I'm going to put more of the onus on the wife. Why is that? Because there's different responsibilities for the both sexes. And so, the same reason, and the woman in the video, she was saying how unfair that is, and it's sexism, because we put more of the responsibility of keeping a clean house on the woman. And I'm like, this is not sexism. This is just, a division of labor. Okay. If I walk into your house and I see a bunch of, animal fur, and I see crumbs on the counter, I see dishes in the sink, and it smells weird, trash hasn't been taken out, I'm going to look at the woman and I'm going to be like, so when are you going to take care of your house? The same thing goes for if I hear that a couple is getting evicted from their house, if I hear that they're getting kicked out of their rental, apartment, rental unit, if your car is getting repossessed, if you can't afford to buy food, I'm gonna look at the husband and be like, why aren't you providing? So the same thing goes for, both sexes. And so, just because we look at women in a certain way and be like, you need to clean your house, it's not sexism. It's just that, women, they gotta be responsible for something. I feel like today's world that women just don't want to be responsible for anything. They just want to do whatever they want, and no one can say anything. Don't ever judge me. Don't ever criticize me. I'm just living my life, and it's just, men are just supposed to accept anything from women. But women have 101 standards and 101, criteria that a man has to meet in order for them to be worthy to be in the same room as a lot of these women. But anyways, and so that was that for Abraham's comment. And then Lawyer Chick, she left a comment, And she said financial honesty and cooperation. And then she went on to elaborate and said one of the leading causes of divorce is financial problems, secret debt, etc., etc. And so, yes, I guess this would be, for both parties, financial honesty and cooperation. And yes, this is extremely important as well. You know, like I was saying, communication. There needs to be open communication between both parties, and about what's going on with the finances. If one party is spending a lot, then the other party needs to know that. I saw this TikTok, or I think it was a TikTok. I don't know. I didn't see it on TikTok. I don't really get on TikTok. If I see a TikTok, it's usually on Instagram. Um, but I saw this little video, and it was of a Ring camera. So someone had like posted the footage from their Ring camera, and this woman, she had bought like 17 things on Amazon. And so her whole front porch was full of boxes. And her husband comes home, and he's looking around like he's shocked. Like he had no idea that there was going to be this much stuff coming to the house. And he literally can't even get in the front door. So that's why he had to ring the doorbell to get his wife's attention, which makes me think, how did he get close enough to the door to be able to ring it without being able to open the door? So I guess like he couldn't, like, because there were like some really big boxes too, or maybe he didn't ring the doorbell, maybe she was just recording him, I don't know exactly, but he was caught on camera, and you could see him like counting the boxes. And when she comes and opens the door, he's like, 17 boxes, Sarah? Like, what is all this? And she's just kind of like, chuckling, and she has their toddler in her arms, and, she just thinks it's funny. And it's like, that's not funny. If my husband bought 17 boxes worth of stuff from Amazon, I would be extremely annoyed, because it's like, I thought this was our money, and I'm an advocate of one account. I'm an advocate of, no separate money, no separate accounts, that everything is shared. So keep that in mind too. But maybe they had a separate thing where, that was her money, and she was doing whatever she wanted with her money. People are different. But yeah, as someone who shares the pot, as someone who believes in financial transparency, it would not be a laughing matter if just 17 boxes showed up at my door and I had no idea that they were on their way. Because I'm like, what the heck are you doing all day? Just to be on Amazon, I can't even imagine buying 17 separate things. All the time that it would take for, to buy these things. And some of them were big, like I said. So you had to be like going through different things. Like, yeah, that would just not be good. We would have a very serious conversation later on that day if that were to happen. And so, yes, Loyal Chick, she says financial honesty and cooperation. And so, yeah, I think cooperation is just pretty self-explanatory, um, that you want to be with somebody who is friendly. You want to be with somebody who's understanding. You want to be with somebody who is not just going to always give you tussle and pushback about every little thing. You want cooperation. It's like, okay, especially, we're about to get into this, but, the woman should be the one who's a bit more cooperative, because she should be the one who is capitulating to the husband and what he desires. And so, but cooperation on both ends is important. It's not that the husband should just be like a dictator and be so unwilling to ever hear his wife out and do anything that she wants. But at the end of the day, what the husband says should be the law of the land, and the wife should cooperate with that. And so that perfectly allows us to segue into our list of Bible verses that go and talk about marriage obligations. Okay, and so the first one that I'm going to touch on is submission/obedience. So yes, so we're going to talk about the evil S word, submit. And David, if you can pull up my other screen, please. Thank you. And so jumping right in, Ephesians 5:22 says, wives, submit yourselves unto your own husbands as unto the Lord. And so and you can make the verse bigger. I want to make sure everybody can read it clearly. And so, yes. And so I know it burns, it stings, but it is what the Bible says. Law says my favorite. Yeah, and so many women, they balk at this. It rubs them such the wrong way. And I can understand that, we live in an upside down world where, if you honestly look at it and you look at the roles and you look at how things have progressed, when you look at, who has strayed further away from their traditional position, it is the women. Okay, so women are the ones who are way off the deep end, and they're so far removed from their traditional roles and positions. Okay, men 100 years ago, they were going to work, they were getting married, they were having children. Okay, and today that's kind of what most men still want. They feel like they can't attain that because they think that marriage is a farce now and that it's a trap. Which honestly, if you're marrying a woman who's not a Christian, or if you're not a Christian, then it is a trap. There's really no incentive, in my opinion, for unsafe people to get married, because it's like a crapshoot. It has very little reward if you're not married, and if you're not a Christian, in my opinion. Um, and so, yeah, the men, a lot of men still want to just do the same thing that they've been doing for centuries. Is just provide, have a wife, have a lineage, have a legacy, have these kids, and they just kind of want to exist and be comfortable and be happy and just, live their life. But it's women who have totally pulled a 180. And 100 years ago, women were more submissive, they were modest, they were feminine, they were submissive. I don't know if I just said that. They were cooperative. And nowadays, women are loud, they're boastful, they're arrogant, they're narcissistic, they're toxic. They, it's whatever they say goes. They're not interested in compromising with a man. They're not interested in growing with a man. They think that they're above, most men. Most women think that they're above most men. These women who are average at best, RIP to the Godfather. A lot of these women who are average at best think that they deserve, some first round draft pick. And so I understand why a lot of women today, they hate this verse. They can't stand it. But God's word is eternal. The Bible says that forever, O Lord, thy word is settled in heaven. And so I'm not interested in changing with the times. I'm not interested in getting modernized. I'm not interested in updating my beliefs to fit modern audiences. Okay, the Bible says what it says, and all God's people said amen. And so I, as a wife, I might not always want to submit. I might not always think that my husband has the right idea, but I do. And the thing about it is that when you do submit to your husband, that even if he does something wrong, even if he makes a misstep, which will happen, of course, because he's human, God will still bless you because you are doing what you're supposed to do. Because when you're submitting to your husband, you're not really submitting to him directly. I mean, you're submitting to him directly, but overall, you're submitting to God, because God is the one who told you to submit to your husband. Okay. So I, as a Christian, I cannot justify saying that I'm not going to obey what my husband said. Well, I mean, okay, I got a caveat, because people always want to go to the extremes. If my husband tells me to rob a bank, I'm not going to do that. Okay. I can honestly and justifiably reject that request. However, most of the time, your husband's not telling you to do something illegal or ungodly. He's telling you to make him a sandwich and to rub his feet. Okay, so let's just get that out of the way. And so when your husband asks you to do anything, within reason, of course, then you should just capitulate, because even if you don't want to do it, at the end of the day, you're submitting to God, you're obeying God. And when you do the things that you don't want to do, God will bless you, and he'll see that. There's a verse that says that we need to endure hardness as a good soldier of Jesus Christ. And so, I think one time I was up here, I think it was over here, where a guy was like, if I had a woman and I asked her to make me a sandwich in the middle of the night, then she should do it. And it was like me and another lady. We were like, well, why couldn't he just ask us to do it, earlier? Why can't I just kind of have like something on hand, like a pantry snack for him to eat on, that he can have, instead of me having to get up in the middle of the night to make him a snack? And so, I don't I mean, I still think that it would be very inconsiderate of my husband to ask me to get up in the middle of the night to make him a sandwich. But if he did, then I feel like I should still do it. Even if it's inconsiderate on his part and he's in the wrong. If I do it, then God will bless me, because I'm doing what God told me to do. It's just like your parents. When you're a child and you obey your parents, even if you don't want to, or even if they might be telling you to do something that you don't really agree with, you think is wrong. Um, but it's not anything like, immoral or whatever. Not immoral. I don't like using that word because morals are subjective, while the righteousness of God is not. But if your parents are telling you to do something like, horrible, then, then that's different, like I said, with your husband. But, like if your parents are telling you to do stuff and you don't understand why, you think it's wrong, but you just do it anyway, then that you're doing the right thing because you just need to obey your parents like God told you to. And so as a wife, even if my husband is making a misstep, in my opinion, hey, he's my authority and I need to respect that and I need to submit. Holy moly, Blowing Air Productions. I haven't seen that name in a long time. Hey, how are you? And how's whiskey? Tell him I said hello. um, Catalina says 2 Timothy 2:3, thou therefore endure hardness as a good soldier of Jesus Christ. Yes, I knew she was going to pull it up. So great. Thank you very much, Catalina. And oh, of course, Beak. I didn't do any promotion for this show, so I didn't know how many of my people would show up. But Beak, I know he got those notifications on. So thank you very much, Beak, for popping up. And so our next verse for this section is pretty much the exact same thing, honestly. But I just want to go to it because at the mouth of two witnesses, let everything be established, right? So it's not just that one verse that says it, ladies. We got the mouth of two witnesses here. So there it is again. Yep, it's back like a bad dream. Okay. It says there, wives, submit yourselves unto your own husbands as it is fit in the Lord. Okay. And then so another thing I want to mention about the concept of submitting is that, I think that sometimes people can get carried away and they think that women in general are supposed to submit to men in general, which is not the case. The Bible never says that. Okay. It is about women. It's about a wife submitting and obeying her husband. Okay. And so, I think that, people can get carried away in either direction. And so some of these, red pillars or whatever, these MGTOW people, they just think that all women should be submissive to all men. And that's just not the case. Okay. But a wife should submit to and obey her husband and give him a level of respect that she would only, I'm sorry. I didn't say the book and chapter. This is Colossians 3:18. Okay. My bad. This is Colossians chapter 3 and then verse 18. And so, yes. So wives, it is important that we show our husband the same amount of respect as we showed our father back when we were growing up. And so we should have shown our father a lot of respect. And so we need to show that to our husband. And just a brief side note is that your spouse should come first. Okay. And this is for both sexes. Okay. My husband comes before my dad. He comes before my mom. He comes before my best friend. He comes before anybody. And he'll come before our children. Okay. That's a big one. Your spouse comes first. Okay. They are your highest priority as a human being. All right. Your best friend, your boss, your parents, your kids, nobody should ever come before your spouse. You should never put anybody above them in importance or in urgency. That is the proper order. So that's for men and women. You don't want to be with some guy who's, going behind your back and siding with his mom over you. Okay. I come before my husband's mom. I come before anybody else in his life. And the same should be for me. So that's just, a side note, that's, you can take that home for free. Okay. So there's that point. So yes. So the first thing is submission/obedience. That is primarily on the wife side. Now in Ephesians, I believe it does say, like submit yourselves one to another. So that kind of goes back to what I was saying that, the husband should not be ruling his home with like an iron fist and, dictating and being a bully to his family, his wife and his kids who are supposed to obey him. he shouldn't be abusing his authority. Okay, that's not right. You know, the Bible says that husbands should love their wives and, like, be willing to lay down his life for her, like Christ did the church. Okay, and so the husband, he deserves the ultimate amount of respect and obedience, because he is willing to take a bullet for you and your family. Willing to go into the line of fire, willing to fight somebody, what have you. He's willing to sacrifice himself for you in his entire life, his existence. And so you should be able to sacrifice your comfort or pleasure for him. Okay, so there's that. But yeah, submission usually is referring to the wife to the husband. So there's that point. And then the second point that I want to bring up about what the Bible says about marital obligations is financial support. And so now we are headed to 1 Timothy chapter 5, verse 8. Okay. And this says here, let me make this a little bit bigger. Okay. And it says here that, but if any provide not for his own house, and specifically for those of his own house, oh wait, I'm sorry. But if any provide not for his own, and especially for those of his own house, he hath denied the faith and is worse than an infidel. Okay, and so this is, I believe that this is talking about men specifically. The Bible uses the pronouns him, and it might not necessarily be talking about men. Like, it could be just speaking in general. But I do believe that this passage is speaking to men directly. Now, I mean, I wouldn't necessarily get dogmatic about that, because if a woman is a single mom for whatever reason, if she's a widow and she, doesn't have a husband because he passed away, or if her if conception was forced on her because she was attacked, and so she has a child now that she has to provide for, and she doesn't have a husband, then I would say that, yeah, she should provide for her own household, and if she's not, then that's a serious problem. But in the ideal, in a proper marriage, then this would be the man providing for his household. And so this goes back to what I was saying earlier about these men who don't want their wives to take their kids out of daycare because they like their wife working, and they want their wife to continue to work outside the home so that way they can upkeep their luxurious lifestyle of their 2 cars and their vacations and their 401k or whatever. And so there's that. But yes, friends, so a financial obligation is to, a marriage obligation is to financially support your spouse. All right. And that is for the men. And because the Bible says that you should honor your wife as the weaker vessel. And so if you're having a proper marriage where you guys are, being fruitful and multiplying, if your wife is getting pregnant like every other year, every 2 years, if she's having a lot of children, like, would be ideal. If you guys are having a proper marital union, then she's not even going to be able to work very much, because she's going to be sick in the first trimester, and she's going to be, heavy to, get around and maneuver. She's going to be slow moving. I feel like my speed gets decreased by, a notch every day. I'm just like moving in slow motion. And then she's going to have postpartum, where she's going to have a giant, baby-sized wound inside of her womb, that needs to heal for at least 6 weeks at the very least. 2 months or 3 months is more ideal. And then she's going to have a baby that's attached to her, hopefully. And so there are a lot of times in a woman's life where she's in that season of, if she's having children, that she's not going to really be able to work, or she really shouldn't be working, because she should be prioritizing her children. And so it's really just it's not ideal for the woman to be working in the first place. In hindsight, I wish that I probably would have worked more before I got pregnant, because then we probably could have become debt free a little bit sooner. We're not debt free. We're in the process of doing that. I wanted to try to do that before we had the baby, because I still have a little bit of energy. I can still maneuver a little bit. I hear that once you get to your 3rd trimester, it's like getting around is just so unbearable. But thankfully, I'll be in the 3rd trimester when it gets cool outside, so that'll be in my favor. But yeah, a woman who is in her season of child rearing and giving birth to children and just raising children, it's really impractical to expect her to work a full-time job and bring in a lot of extra income. I mean, now we're living in the gig economy. We're living in the information age where you can like do something like this, and I could have like a gaggle of kids around me, and I could still be talking on the internet and possibly bringing in an income. So I mean, things are a little bit different now, but yeah, it would be impractical to expect your wife to be the primary breadwinner when she's raising kids. And a man doesn't do that. He doesn't experience any physical setbacks because he has a bunch of kids. And so it is the responsibility of the man to make sure that his household is provided for. So there's that one verse. And then there's another one in Proverbs 31:11. And this is what I was mentioning earlier about the Proverbs 31 woman and how her husband sees her. Let's see here. 11. Okay, so here it is. Proverbs 31:11 says that the heart of her husband doth safely trust in her, so that he shall have no need of spoil. And so spoil, what that is saying is that, extra or, an abundance. I feel like we probably are most familiar with that term, like in the context of like pirates. um, I guess, if they say like, these are the spoils of my reward or something, like, he who's the winner gets all the spoils. That's that same wording, that's the same usage of that phrase. So it's saying that her husband's heart safely trusts in her, and so that way he can trust that he doesn't need extra, he doesn't need an abundance of income, that whatever income he brings in, that he can trust that she is going to be wise with it. And it talks about in another passage, where is that other verse? Let's see here. Oh yeah. So verse 18 in the same chapter, Proverbs 31, it says that she perceiveth that her merchandise is good, her candle goeth not out by night. And so yeah, a wise wife, she is, going, another one is that the one that passed? Where is it? It says that like she goes afar off to go find her meat. Okay. Maybe I'm okay. I think I might have passed it. But there's another verse about how like she's wise with her income. Okay. Okay, I can't seem to find it right now. Maybe I'm thinking of the wrong thing. But I thought there was one that said like oh, here it is. It's verse 14. It was right in front of me. She is like the merchant ships, she bringeth her food from afar. And so, yeah, if she, sees a good deal, if you find that the things that you normally buy, like if you normally buy a pork shoulder or a chuck roast at the store that's 5 minutes up the road, but you see that the store that's 15 minutes up the road has it half off for today or tomorrow, then, she'll go up the street and go a little bit further to get a better deal because she's being wise with the money of the household. And that's why, verse 11, her husband's heart does safely trust in her. And so, financial support goes both ways. The husband should be providing a reasonable amount of money. Of course, that depends on where you live. What reasonable is subjective. I understand that. But, your husband should be providing, a livable amount, so that you guys can exist and not be, poor. The Bible says that, having food and raiment is clothing, you should be there with content. So as long as your husband is providing you with the ability to not be naked, he has you in clothes. It doesn't have to be designer clothes, but as long as he's able to get you clothes when there's holes in it, or that when you need something, and that he's putting food on the table, then you need to be content. So if as long as he's working a reasonable amount and he can provide the basics for you guys, then that's his responsibility. And then as the wife, it's our responsibility to not waste the money that he makes. Okay. And so it's not that he just needs to make more money and he just needs to hustle more and work more overtime and not be with the family as much, but he needs to do his best and put in his number one, his grade A effort. The Bible says that everything that your hand finds, do it well. I'm not quoting that exactly, but and everything that you can find to do, do it well, do it for the glory of God. Okay, so he should be putting in maximum effort at work and trying to get the best yield from that. Trying to get a promotion, trying to get a bonus, trying to get a raise. But on the back end, as the wife, it's my job to not blow it. It's my job to shop wisely. I've mentioned this before that I try to buy things in bulk. Okay, I try to do like a monthly shopping trip, because if you buy your stuff once a month, you're not always in the store. And so you're not spending as much on tax, because you're not getting taxed every time you go to the store. You pay tax one time on a bunch of things. And you can, save off inflation for a couple of weeks, because you don't have to go back to the store. And next week, the things might be more expensive, but you paid the cheaper price because you bought it at the beginning of the month or what have you. So there's that. As a wife, it's important that we strive to make our husband's money stretch as much as we can, because we should respect the fact that he has to work hard to earn it. And we're not doing that. So there's that. And that is for our financial support section. And so next one is emotional respect. Okay. So this kind of goes back to what I was saying at the beginning about communication and how men and women should be able to safely trust in each other as spouses. Okay. First Timothy. Oh, wait, no, I'm sorry. First Peter. First Peter 3:7. Okay. Oh, yeah, this is what I was just referencing. Okay, so here in First Peter 3:7, it says, "Likewise, ye husbands, dwell with them according to knowledge, give honor unto the wife as unto the weaker vessel, and as being heirs together of the grace of life, that your prayers be not hindered." Okay. And so, a husband should be very emotionally respectful and understanding of his wife, and that he should understand that she is the weaker vessel. And I think that now, feminism, has just been nothing but trouble, in my opinion. And it's bitten a lot of women in the butt, especially in this aspect of emotional weakness and physical weakness. Because women, sometimes we need that extra break. We need more downtime. We need more time to recover after we do certain things or experience certain things. And because feminism has taught men that men and women are equal, and men and women can do the exact same thing, that they don't need to, be seen as less than, that they don't need to be seen as weaker. And so sometimes women will do things and act in a certain way that is completely justifiable and understandable because we're women, but men will understand because they've been programmed and taught their whole life that men and women are equal, that women are just as strong as men. So like me being pregnant, I don't feel any more emotional. I don't feel like I've been any more moody. But I'm sure I probably have been because my hormones are going all over the place. And so, it would be very unfair of my husband to just expect me to be as perfectly even keeled as I normally am right now, because I'm going through a lot right now in my body, whether I perceive it or not. And so if he didn't understand, I thankfully he's been pretty understanding, because he is just a pretty nice person. And so, it would be very unfair for him to not understand. Like, I saw this video. He actually sent me this my husband sent me this video. And I'm sure you guys might have seen it too. It went kind of viral. And it was of this British couple, and you could tell because the way that they were talking. It was this British couple, and the husband was asking the wife for him to cook a pot roast because his parents were coming into town. And she was like, "I just had a baby 3 days ago." And he's like, "All you've been doing for the past 3 days is sitting around drinking tea." She's like, "I just had a baby." And he's like, "Well, I'll hold the baby while you cook the roast, or, it can't be that hard." And she was like, I've been, I'm recovering and I just had a baby and how dare you ask this of me? And he was like, you've been sitting around and, you've had 3 days of rest and you tell me you can't make a simple roast. And, it was so comical because he was being so insensitive. And it's like, she just had a baby 3 days ago. Like, people don't really notice this because you can't see it. But when a baby is born, okay, so just brief biology lesson from Mrs. Jenny. When a woman is pregnant, she grows a whole new organ called the placenta. And when the baby is born, a few minutes after that, the placenta is birthed as well. And when you're in recovery, when you're in postpartum, your uterus and your organs around, that get mushed and smushed all around because they're making room for the baby, they have to go back to where they were. Your uterus has to go back down to the way it was. And so you have a placenta-sized whole wound in your body that needs to go back down to normal and heal. Okay, but that's all inside of your body, so you can't see that. So you might look like you're normal, but in reality, you have a gigantic wound. Okay, and you need to sit and rest and be pretty much bedridden for like the first week. And you probably should not be getting out of bed for anything other than having to use the bathroom for like the first week after you give birth. Depending on even how severe it was. If you had twins, if you had a really long labor, then it can be longer than that. But it's extremely important for women to take it easy when they have a baby. And we just live in this go 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 culture. And when women are constantly being expected to do everything that men can do, and they want to have a baby and jump right back into work and just do everything they used to do, and it's just not realistic. We are the weaker vessel, and men need to be understanding of that. They need to be sensitive to that. And so we can have, better cohesion in the relationship if we understand our different needs. And now, unfortunately, I do not have another verse for this, kind of in regards to women understanding men's feelings. But just in general, like men are suffering in different ways and in a lot of the same ways. I mean, they suffer with a lot of the same things, but they suffer in different ways. So, men, they struggle with identity and they struggle with self-image, insecurities, feeling inadequate, things like that. All the same things that women just struggle with, men do, but they deal with it in their own different way. And so it's important that as a wife, you're sensitive to that. I think that sometimes women are just so quick to post something that their husband says that's kind of dumb or silly, or post their husband doing something silly, and they don't realize that your husband could be feeling insecure about that. We'll take pictures of our husbands and make little jokes about them, or just like we as women can be a little bit callous to how men feel, and it shouldn't be that way. Of course, we don't want to. Men aren't sissies, but especially as a wife, your husband, he's gonna have to go out and deal with the banter and deal with the jokes from the world. But you, as his wife, you should be his safe haven. You should be his quantum of solace, and you should be the absolute place where he can feel most like himself, and that he can be totally unabashedly how he wants to be. That should be the goal of the wife, to be very mindful of how her husband feels, and not to ever abuse his feelings. And I hear a lot from men when they say that you can't ever fully be transparent with your wife about how you feel because she'll bring it back up in an argument. I've heard that a ton, and I'm sure you guys have heard that too. And so, my goodness, don't ever be that wife. If your husband tells you something in confidence, if your husband bears out how he feels to you, if your husband tells you something that is like very deep and personal to him, don't ever bring that back up in an argument and use it against him. Oh my goodness, because all you've done is now made your husband bitter against you, and made this wall now put up that may never come back down. And so please be very mindful of that, and try not to ever let that happen and fall victim to that. Because I think that, we as women can fall victim to being a little bit too rough with our husbands, because they don't have the stereotype of being sensitive like we do. And we can be a little bit too rough with them emotionally. And, it's good to just, be tender and thoughtful towards your husband. I remember maybe like a week or two ago, I was talking to my husband and I said something about his dad. And I wasn't trying to be offensive, but I was just being frank. I was just being objective in my opinion. Now, my husband's dad has passed away. And so he's very sensitive about his dad and he, is very protective of the memory of his dad. And I never got to meet his dad. And so I said something that came across very wrong he received it in a way I did not intend for him to receive it. And so when I could tell that he was genuinely upset with what I said, I immediately apologized. And not, this apology that a lot of people do, and not just women, but people in general, the sorry you felt that way, which I have said before, but never to like someone who I really care about. It's always like to someone online or to someone who I'm talking to and I don't really care that they're offended, this sorry you feel that way. But as a wife, it's extremely important that, we're sensitive to our husband's feelings. And so when I saw that I had genuinely upset him, I just completely was like, I am so sorry. That was not my intention. I would never want to say a cross word about your dad. I respect him, as your dad and as the dad. And so I would never want to say something that would come across in the way that you received it, like a total misunderstanding. Like, I am so sorry. And like, just be, don't try to say like, oh, like, and don't even really try to like, I guess, explain yourself at the time because, emotions are high and so they might not receive it at the time. So if you just say something to your husband and it upsets him and, it offends him, then, probably save trying to explain yourself until later when he kind of cools down and just in the moment be like, I am so sorry. I did not mean that way. I would never say something like that. I would never mean that in that way to you. I have the utmost respect for you and just kind of leave it at that for then. And then maybe later on, try to come back and say, this is what I meant. This is what I was trying to say. And maybe what have you. And so, yes, as wives, we need to be very sensitive to our husband's emotions as well, as we want him to be, because the golden rule is to treat others how you want to be treated. So there's that. And then moving right along is physical relief. Okay, so I know that we're all grown here, and most of us are married or have been married in the past. But I do like to be a bit more chaste in my speech. I don't like it when people are extremely explicit, especially women. I find that to be tacky. So when I say physical relief, I like to use the term the marriage building exercise. And so I'm sure you can understand what I'm saying and what I'm getting at. And so, yes, hold on. Let me get this right. Okay. So yes, this is in regard to the marriage building exercise. Okay. Oh, okay. And so this is extremely important in a marriage. So many people, and I'm sure if you're a regular viewer of the Black Men Unfiltered channel, then you've heard them talk about this on more than one occasion. Because this is something that the men over here that they stress because it's very important, which is not neglecting your spouse's physical needs. Okay. And so here we are in First Corinthians. What chapter are we in? 1 Corinthians 7. Okay, yeah. 1 Corinthians 7:5. Okay. And also, just a brief note, which if you're familiar with me, then you already know, but we're using the King James. Okay. So if you're following along, please follow along in the King James because those other translations are bunk. They're not God's word. But, anyways, just wanted to make that brief announcement. But here in verse 5, it says, defraud ye not one the other, except it be with consent for a time, that ye may give yourselves to fasting and prayer, and come together again, that Satan tempt you not for your incontinency. And so a lot is in here. Oh wait, I have another. I need to pull up another verse that I can use for this point. So hold on just a second. Stand by. Okay. Is this the same chapter? Oh, okay. It's the same chapter. Okay, perfect. All right. So great. It just so happened it's the verse right above it. Okay, so anyways, so these two verses are talking about the marriage building exercise. They're talking about your physical relationship with your spouse. And so today we're living in a day and age where a lot of spouses are not coming together like they're supposed to. They are not um, engaging in their marriage building exercise like they should. And this is a big reason for why adultery is on the rise. It's certainly not the main reason, I would say. I would say the main reason why adultery is on the rise is because we live in a country that thinks that marriage is a joke, that thinks that adultery is a joke. They think that adultery is sexy. They think that it's cool, it's interesting, it's hot, it's fun. And whether or not it's agreed upon adultery, so swinging, if you're a swinger couple, that's still adultery. Having your marital union outside of marriage or doing the marriage building exercise outside of marriage is still adultery, whether or not you agree on it. Okay. So there's that. But whether or not it's agreed upon adultery or not, it's still wrong. And the fact that we live in a country that takes marriage so lightly is a disgrace. And so, but I think that one of the reasons why adultery is on the rise is that couples are not coming together as they should. And there's a lot of reasons for this. Okay. It could be for the woman. I think that's usually what it is that the woman doesn't want to, due to whatever reason, a hormone imbalance, an emotional issue. She doesn't feel emotionally connected. So she doesn't want to be physically connected. She could be going through something physically, like I was saying, postpartum. It's not ideal that you jump right back into the bed. And as soon as you have a baby, that should be some downtime as well. Now how much downtime exactly, I don't know. I can't get dogmatic about that, because in this verse right here, it says that you should defraud not one another except for be consent for a time, that you give yourself to fasting and prayer. And so, you shouldn't be fasting when you're in postpartum either, because you should be trying to breastfeed. And so that's a whole, other ball of wax. But, I think that it's just physically wise that you take some time off from that when you're, newly, given birth, because your body needs to heal and you just need to relax from everything. Okay. But, so there's a lot of different reasons why people might not be having their union as often as they should. But sadly, it seems like one of the most common reasons is that she just doesn't want to. She just doesn't feel the need. She doesn't feel obligated to do that. And what are we talking about? Marriage obligations. Okay. So she thinks that it's just kind of something that she can do whenever she wants. And, if I want to have it, we'll have it. If I don't want to, you can't force me. And it's unfortunate because, we live in a country that takes marriage so lightly. So it's like, if they can't get you going, they're gonna get you coming, and so, it's that, um not only do we, we take adultery so lightly, but we live in a country where marital rape or grape, excuse me, I don't want to, trigger anything on Black Man's channel, but marital grape is actually recognized by the law. And I personally think that that's ridiculous, because in this verse right here, verse 4, it says that the wife hath not power over her own body, but the husband. And likewise, also the husband hath not power over his own body, but the wife. So this idea of marital grape is impossible, because it's not even her body to decide what she does with it anymore. It's his body. And so if he wants to have the union, then she doesn't have a say in the matter. She just needs to be a willing participant. And the same goes for the husband. If the wife wants to, then he does not have the right to say no. He just needs to do what he's supposed to do, and he needs to, you know, be a willing participant. The same is for both parties. Okay. And so the fact that the law recognizes marital grape is just another attack on the family. It's just another attack on marriage, and making people disincentivized to even get married. Because it's like, you're supposed to be able to get married and the marriage bed is undefiled. Um, but yeah, it's like marriage is honorable and all, and the bed undefiled, but whoremongers and adulterers God will judge. Okay. And so the fact that, the marriage bed is not even a sacred place anymore. And the government can come in there, and either party could come back years later and say, they took it from me. I didn't want to do it. They made me do it. And then the law recognizes that. It's just like, nowhere is safe. Nowhere is safe. You can even be married to somebody and they can still put you on the hook for rape. Total insanity. We are living in clown world. Okay. But ideally, that's pretty extreme. Okay. Things have to get pretty vitriolic for people to want to use that claim against each other. But at the end of the day, spouses need to be coming together regularly. Okay. It was over here actually that I learned this stat. Because like I said, this is not a topic that the Black Man Unfiltered Network is in any way shy to. And so I believe that it was over here that they said that men who get diagnosed with prostate cancer, it is that same demographic of men who are usually in these marriage building exerciseless marriages. And so they're not getting that physical release from their wife like they're supposed to, and that can have emotional detriment, because you don't feel as emotionally close to your wife like you should, because you're not physically coming together. But then there's also wreaking physical havoc, and so yeah, you're not coming together, and so there's that, and that's not good. And so we as wives, we should care about our husband's physical health, and so we should not want that to happen at the very least. I mean, good night. There's a lot of reasons why we should be coming together on a regular basis, because we should want to have children. We should want to be being fruitful and multiplying like God told us to do, and we should be wanting to have emotional closeness with your spouse. And I find it so interesting that like the most common reason that you hear online about wives not wanting to come together with their husband is because they don't feel emotionally close to him. They feel emotionally estranged, so they don't get in the mood to get together with their husband. But in reality, getting together with your husband will make you more emotionally close to him. Okay, so sometimes you got to put the cart before the horse. Okay, and so if you guys have been fighting a lot, if you guys maybe have been away, from each other for work or what have you. You guys may have, I don't know, just whatever reason that you guys might not be on the best terms right now, and you might not just be, have your hands all over each other. You might not just feel emotionally into one another right at this moment. If you just come together anyway, then you will eventually, you will feel closer to them after it. And so, it's really counterintuitive to say, well, I'm not gonna come together with him because I don't feel like it. But if you come together, then you'll feel closer to him and you'll be like, oh, I love you so much. I remember when I was single, a lady at my church, she was giving me some really good guidance when it comes to fornication and why we should flee fornication like the Bible says. And that, if you're unmarried, then you just need to really stay away from it. And it can be very detrimental to your dating relationship. And the analogy that she gave to me, or metaphor, I suppose it might have been, was that, when you're dating somebody and you come together in that marital, then the act that's supposed to be only saved for marriage, it will cloud your judgment and it will muddy the waters of the things that you see in them that you deem important, or the things that you see in them that are deemed red flags. Okay, so if you and your just boyfriend or girlfriend are coming together physically, then you might not realize that she's really a lot crazier than you ever really want to deal with. And I know for a fact that a lot of men can agree with this. They keep coming together physically with this girl that they know they don't really want to marry. They don't really take her seriously. They don't see her as a wife, but they just enjoy being with her. And then eventually she gets pregnant, and now she's the mother of your child, and she's totally nuts. Okay, and now look at you, looking stuck on stupid, as Coach Greg Adams would say. And so there's that, and then of course on the opposite end, women, they mess with these pookies and these rays who are unserious, never showed any real signs of being father figures, of having their life together. of being the kind of man that would step up to the plate and raise his kids. They mess with these knuckle draggers, and then eventually they get pregnant, and then they're like, oh, he's a deadbeat. He's not a good dad. He's not reliable. I mean, he barely shows up to his second shift at Denny's on time, and you thought that he was gonna step up and be a good father? Bye. Like, y'all out here making poor choices and then getting mad when you gotta sleep and when you gotta lay in the bed that you made. Okay, pun intended. And so, yeah, so that's what the lady was saying. She was like, when you're single or like when you're dating, and you're coming together in that union, then it's gonna cloud your judgment, and you're gonna think things that are really big deals, things that are you really don't want to be with for this person. Like, you really don't like these attributes in this person. You're gonna overlook them when you're coming together physically, and that's a bad thing, okay? Because you need to be in the vetting process when you're dating somebody. But on the flip side, it will strengthen your marriage because that it does the same thing. When your spouse is doing something that annoys you, or when your spouse is not being your favorite person, then when you guys come together, it muddies that, it calms that water, okay? And so, because when you're dating someone, you need to be looking for reasons to get rid of them. Okay. You need to be vetting them. You need to be scrutinizing them, judging them, and seeing if they're a proper fit for you. But when you get married, you need to be trying to do everything to hold your marriage together. Okay. And so the more that husbands and wives, come together the way that they're supposed to, then him leaving the seat up isn't going to really bother you as much as it did 20 minutes ago, and her cooking chicken for the third night in a row isn't going to bother you as much as it would have, if you guys are coming together, and that union, that release that you guys both need. Okay. I guess men more than women usually, but you both need it. That will kind of just smooth things over, and that will help keep the peace in your home, even if you don't feel like it at the time, even if you feel like you're busy. I know people say that scheduling it is not romantic and it's not ideal, and I guess it's not. I mean, I've never experienced that personally. But if you have to schedule it, then put it on the schedule. I mean, it's just important that you just do it, okay? And so you just need to be engaging in it, whether or not it's spontaneous and hot and whatever. You just need to be having it. Okay. And then your marriage will be better off all around for it. Kat, she says here that in all, men who averaged 4.6 to 7 times of the marriage building exercise a week were 36% less likely to be diagnosed with prostate cancer before the age of 70 than men who had less than 2.3 times of the marriage building exercise a week on average. Very interesting. Thank you. So Kat is basically like the unofficial researcher of the Mrs. Ginny channel. So thank you for bringing that up, Kat. So yes, wives, like verse 31, like Proverbs 31:11 said, that verse is in relation to money, and I understand that. But your husband's heart safely trusting in you can really go into a lot of different areas. And so your husband's heart should safely trust in you to know that you care about his health. Oh my goodness. My husband, before this year, he hadn't been to the doctor or the dentist since before I met him. So it had been at least 3 years, probably closer to 5 or 6 years, that he had been to the doctor or the dentist. And so I made him the appointments because he has benefits with his job. And so I was like, you need to use this. You need to go to the doctor. You need to go to the dentist. You need to get a physical. You need to get a cleaning. And so, and he wouldn't have really, done any of that because, people think that you're strong, like we as young people, we think that we're invincible. Of course, men are even more like this. They think they're just indestructible. And so they don't take care of themselves like they should. And that's why every man needs a wife, and all God's people said amen. And so, as the wife, you should be very much invested in the well-being of your husband. And that includes, scheduling his cleanings, scheduling his physicals if need be, making sure he's eating a well-balanced diet, getting a lot of protein, getting carbs, getting fruits and vegetables, drinking water, exercising, and that he is reducing his rates of that he is reducing his chances of prostate cancer. Okay. And so this is extremely important. I'm kind of speaking more to the ladies because it does seem like it is a more of a problem on the women's side, but it's not unheard of that a man. Is there a way that we can block Abraham? Anyways, I'm losing my train of thought. But anyways, so yes, as a wife, okay, that's what I was about to say. That it's not just the women. I'm sure that there are a lot of women out there suffering in silence whose husbands are not doing their role. That the husband is defrauding the wife, and that's not any better. Okay, so for whatever reason that the husband doesn't want to, that's not good enough. And both parties need to be not defrauding one another because it's about the overall betterment of the relationship. Okay, Neo, I apologize for not addressing more of the comments. It's really hard for me to speak and talk about what I plan on talking about and then reading the comments as well because it got me off track. But I do want to take a time to address some of the comments, I guess. And so Neo says, dang, I thought I heard deal breakers, but many heard that before dating, wouldn't want situation. Shout out to you for understanding. Just take your time. Oh man. Yeah, he said he thought he heard deal breakers, but many hear that before dating. You're talking about making sure you don't come together physically before you get married. Is that what you're talking about? Because yeah, things that would be deal breakers, that oh, he's a good example would be like, oh, he's not the same religion as me. He's not a Christian. He has a really low paying job. He's not a go-getter. He doesn't have his own car. All these different things that you might not like about somebody, or like, oh, she's on bipolar medication. She has 4 cats. She's estranged from her parents. All these things that would initially be like, okay, I don't take you seriously. I don't want to see you as a long-term partner. All those things that you would initially pay attention to, you disregard and you just kind of let slide because you guys are coming together physically and you guys are enjoying it. And you're like, oh, well, it's okay. I'm here for a good time, not a long time. Oh. Many have fallen into this trap, okay? And so Mrs. Jenny does not want to see that for you. And so, friend, just stay away from fornication like the Bible told you to do, and you'll be all around better for it. But on the flip side, you need to be having your marriage building exercise regularly to strengthen your marriage and literally strengthen your partner. Keep him strong and healthy. And I don't know if there's any statistics on what not having your physical release does to a woman's health. I'm sure it probably does something negative, but I don't know if there's any stats on that. So Catalea, if you can find anything on that, then you can drop that in the chat as well. Neo, he goes on to explain, I'm saying having checkups and regular stuff line up, having the ducks in a row, most look for a perfect situation, but many ladies miss the bigger picture. Yes, exactly. So many women are so focused on having a guy who is 6 foot and looks a certain way and his jaw is like, chiseled out of marble. And they're missing the part where he's like mean to you. And they're missing the part where he's a cheater. Okay. And so, yeah, people, they have their priorities all out of whack. But you guys already knew that. I'm not telling you anything you didn't know. So, and so lastly, I want to bring up the topic of long suffering / forgiveness. So I don't have any specific verses for this. I just want to look at some of the verses that talk about long suffering. It's not a lot. It's about 17 here that use that word by name. And so let me make it a little bit bigger. So we're tapping into Every Word Wednesdays. Shout out to you if you watch Every Word Wednesdays. But here it says in 2 Corinthians 6:6 that by pureness, by knowledge, by long suffering, by kindness, by the Holy Ghost, by love unfeigned. 2 Timothy 3:10 says, but thou hast fully known my doctrine, manner of life, purpose, faith, long suffering, charity, patience. Colossians 3:12 says, put on therefore as the elect of God, holy and beloved, bowels of mercies, kindness, humbleness of mind, meekness, long suffering. Galatians 5:22 says that, but the fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, long suffering, gentleness, goodness, faith. Romans 9:22 says, what if God, willing to show his wrath and to make his power known, endured with much long suffering the vessels of wrath fitted to destruction? And so, friend, when it comes to Christianity, I'm speaking as a Christian, hopefully you're a Christian. That would be the ideal. But as a married person, it's very important that we have this perspective and we have this view of long suffering. Okay, marriage is a marathon, it's not a sprint. Okay, and so your spouse is going to do lots of things over the course of the marriage that are going to really annoy you. Moses says, chiseled jaw and missing teeth, lives in his mama's basement. Yeah. But over the course of your marriage, your spouse is going to do a lot of things that annoy you and that perturb you and that you wish that they didn't do. And a lot of those things they're going to outgrow and they're going to, mature past. But, I'm sure that there's going to be some things that are just how your spouse is. Okay. No one ever is a finished product. No one's going to ever be perfect on this side of heaven. So, some things I'm sure that they're going to, do better at, whether it be like popping their gum or talking with their mouth, talking with their mouth full, whether that they leave the seat up or if they snore or what have you, your spouse is going to do things that annoy you. And that's just natural. And you just have to accept that. No man is just going to be the perfect thing. Like, the perfect man already came and left, ladies. All right. Okay. So if you want to get to know him, you just have to believe on him. And men, I'm sorry, but there's no such thing as a perfect woman. We had a perfect woman and then she messed up everything for humanity. Okay. So there's that. And so when it comes to marriage, you just have to have this mindset of long suffering and forgiveness. Okay. You have to learn how to let things go. You have to learn how to just move on after an argument. You have to learn how to just let bygones be bygones. I don't know where that saying came from. I don't know what a bygone is, but that's a saying. And so you just have to learn how to move on. Okay. And everything's not worth like hashing out and going over and getting to the bottom of. And I think it was maybe like a month ago, I talked about, maybe it was longer than that. Maybe it was a month ago. I talked about how my mom, she was trying to give me some good marriage advice and she was giving me the yes, dear strategy. And that when my husband is saying something to me and he's trying to whip up an argument and I just shut it down and I just say, yes, dear. And so I've been using that. Okay. So an update, I have been using that. I've been trying to use it, I guess I should say. And so it does yield to be effective. Okay. Even for the most stubborn of participants. And so, yes, friend, sometimes you've got to say yes, dear, and let it roll off you like, water on a duck. Okay. So every battle is not worth, having. Every hill is not worth dying on. You just gotta let stuff go. Okay. And it's so hard for someone like me because I know I come across as someone who's really lighthearted and easygoing. And I guess I am for the most part. I don't hold grudges. But I do like to have the final word and I do like to be right. And so if I know that you're wrong, then I'm going to beat you into submission until you admit that I'm right and you're wrong. And that is not conducive for marriage, if you can believe that. And so, that's just something that I have been having to work on is just that, what? Let him have it. You got it. Like people say, hey, you got it. It's whatever. So, you have to kind of adopt that mentality and hopefully it's easier for you. And so that would be great because just the more lighthearted and easygoing you are, the easier marriage is going to be. So I'm not, like I said, I'm not one for holding grudges. So after we hash something out, then, I'm gonna be over it. But whatever area you are good at in that area, whether or not, if you're really good at diffusing arguments, not engaging in arguments, or forgiving quickly after arguments, you just want to be good in all of those areas, but especially any one of them. um so you can, have a thriving marriage. And if you're not good at it, then you need to get good at it, okay? Because your marriage, like my dad, he said this quote to me, I'll never forget it. He said, if you want to be right, you can be right all the way down until divorce court. Okay, you can be right all the way until you get up into the divorce, office. And so he's like, how important is it really to be right at the end of the day versus keeping your marriage together? And I'm like, no, no, it burns. I mean, he's wrong. He's wrong about what he said. I need to let him know that he's wrong. It's not right. And it's like, it doesn't really matter at the end of the day. Because most of the things that you guys talk about, it's probably not even worth a hill of beans anyway. Like, you guys are probably screaming at each other about whether or not you should get a chuck roast or like a pork shoulder, and it doesn't matter. Yes, lost in translation. It burns. Ugh, I hate it. Having to concede the argument because I'm trying to hold on to my marriage. Oh my goodness. But hey, you know, you can't. You're not really winning anything, because at the end of the day, what is the goal? What is the prize you're actually trying to win? I, for one, am trying to win the prize of having a long-lasting, lifelong marriage. I want to be able to go to my grave. If I die first, I want to be able to look up at my husband on my deathbed and say that, I fought a good fight. Boy, do you got to fight a good fight sometimes in marriage. I finished the race. I kept the faith. Okay. That's the goal I'm trying to get. And so, I want to be able to, say that I had a good lifelong marriage. I honored my vows. I never stepped out. I was faithful, in sickness and in health, for richer or poorer, until death, did us part. And then if my husband dies first, then I want to be able to look down at him, as he's, transitioning over, and I want to say, I loved you as much as I could, and I did my best, and I gave it my all. And so that's really the prize that you should be looking for, not the prize of the momentary gratification of saying I was right and I proved him wrong. Oh, I sure showed him. Come on now. Gotta do better than that, folks. Come on. I'm trying to encourage you. Like I always say, I'm in the thick of it, with you right now. People always want to get on our pain because they say that he's a dinosaur and he doesn't understand what it's like now in the modern day marriage. But I do. I'm right there with you. And so, it's a fight, but it's worth the fight. To fight for your marriage, that is, not to fight over these little things that don't matter. Okay. And so you have to mitigate those, and keep things in perspective. Okay. It's like, I got to keep the big picture in mind. Like Neo is saying, that these women today, that they don't look at the big picture. And so there's that. And so, yes, friends, that is the marriage obligations that I have for you tonight. If David, if you want to drop the link, you can. And so anybody who might want to come up, they can pop up and add anything, excuse me, that they want to add. But overall, so just to review over what we talked about this evening, we talked about the first one being submission/obedience, and that is more so on the woman's part. More so, I say, but not entirely. Your husband should be mindful of how you feel and want to capitulate to you to a certain degree. I think that that's the right thing for him to do. He should be mindful of being a good husband to you, because Christ doesn't do things out of spite. He doesn't just do things just to do things. He does things with our best interest at heart. And so your husband should want to govern over you in that same way. But the wife should be submissive and obedient to her husband, 9 times out of 10. Okay. We already gave way for those caveats. And then next one is financial support. So it is the responsibility and the duty, the obligation of the husband to provide the money. And then the wife, it's her role to not waste the money. Okay. And for her to be mindful and to spend it, wisely, and make it stretch as far as it can. And so that is in the financial realm of what's an obligation. Emotional respect. Okay, so we touched on how men need to respect their wives and honor their wives as the weaker vessel, emotionally and physically. And then wives need to be mindful of their husband, that he is still human. Okay. It's good to expect your man to be macho. It's good to expect your man to be masculine and tough and hard. But he's still flesh and blood. Okay. Thank you for taking that down. He's still flesh and blood. Okay. And so he has feelings and they need to be respected. And you should never want to intentionally disrespect your husband, or you should never be flippant about things that you say that could possibly disrespect your husband. Like I was watching a podcast, and it was about Savannah Bryant, actually. So not Savannah Bryant, Savannah James, LeBron James's wife. She was on a podcast and she referred to LeBron as nigga. Like she said, this nigga. And then she immediately was like, "Ooh," and she, her and the host, they kind of laughed about it. And the guy that was reviewing it, that he was like, reviewing the clip, he was like, LeBron James is a billionaire. He was like, I wish if I was a billionaire, my wife would call me nigga. And he was saying that, of course, being that LeBron James, that he has been able to afford his wife with a lifestyle that most human beings on earth right now can never attain, but that most human beings who've ever existed could not have attained. Okay. So LeBron James, he's in the 1%. He's probably in the 0.1%. He's a billionaire. And so his wife, therefore, by association, by marriage, is in the 0.1%. She's a billionaire as well. And so for her to speak so flippantly about her husband, I think is bad. Okay. And I don't know what kind of relationship they have. Some people are more, loose with each other, and I guess it's whatever, however your relationship, fits and how you guys run it. But yeah, I just think it's probably just a bad look in general. I mean, just speaking in general terms, you probably just shouldn't refer to your husband as nigga. It's just not a sign of respect. Okay. Especially like in public. Okay. I guess that's what I'm saying. Like, behind closed doors, if you and your husband, you joke around and call each other names and derogatory stuff, that's whatever. That's only between you two. But, for Savannah James to say that in public, about her husband is just not a good look. Because it's like, you're, as a man, now correct me if I'm wrong, men, but, as a man, you would want your wife to be the number one person who respects you, to show you the utmost respect. And if your own wife isn't even respecting you and goes out, calls you out of your name in public, okay, then, why should you expect anybody else to show you any respect? You got anybody can just say anything to you and it doesn't matter because, your wife calls you this. Why can't I call you this? And so lost in translation, he agrees. And so that's the only agreement I need, I guess. Because lost in translation, he knows what's going on. He has his finger on the pulse of relationships. And so, yeah, so that was that point. I kind of got diverted, but we were recapping. And so that point was emotional respect. Okay. And so ladies, we need to be very mindful of our husband. People say that, men have such fragile egos, and, they might, I guess as general speaking, men might have fragile egos, but they have, to say the least. And we should, as a wife, we should try to respect that and not go out of our way to try to humble them, especially in public. But hello, Dolo. I don't know if we've been acquainted before. How are you?
It's Neo. I'm the brother on the chat.
Oh,
I don't know if you remember. I was on it before. It was like during June. I think you did the whole series on something. I forgot the title, but it was like the one stream you did last month in June. So I was actually on vacation. I was a guy with the vacation with the Hawaiian shirt. So if you remember that.
Oh, were you in like a swivel chair?
No. I was on the couch. I was talking about I'm trying to remember, but it was a long time ago. But it was
Was
a
it
while
blue?
back.
Was
It was
your
a blue.
Hawaiian shirt?
The blue was blue. Yeah, that's me.
Okay. I think I
Yeah,
do remember you.
yeah. It's been a minute though. I just got back from this event, but I was listening on my way back home, and I'm just like, I gotta jump on this stream because it's a good conversation. I love it, and it's always good to have these talks because I think reverts to the conversation you said about Savannah. I heard the pod, and I thought, it's not, one thing I learned. I'm just, as they say, turn the hourglass over. We're gonna start watching now what's about to happen with this because her podcast is it's not looking too good. I think she gotta watch out, because that's a brand she's messing with now. That's the brand name.
Exactly.
Now, what is gonna happen with her on her pod? Because I know the whole slip up, and then they edit the video, so there's more words said after that, and I'm like, they edit this whole thing.
Yeah, they
So
did.
yeah, so I don't know what Savannah's thinking, but I feel like with her saying the wifey thing, it says don't call me wifey, and then there's a video also on top of that because I think Greg Adams was talking about this. He said,
Yeah.
he was talking about, yeah, when we're gonna renew our vows, and then he don't and she don't know he should be recorded. Then she said, yeah, we're gonna renew our vows, and then she looked at the camera slapped. I'm like, yo, she knew that was coming, but she didn't know LeBron was doing that. But of course, that it was something serious behind that. I don't know what that is. It's crazy to see that.
Yeah. And I just don't understand. And like, yeah, because it was Coach Adams that I saw it on as well, and he was saying like, more women just need to learn how to be quiet. You fumble your own bag because you talk too much.
That soundboard he had talking about be quiet. I was like, okay, I was dying.
Silence, you fool.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, but it's crazy though, because I was on another pod today earlier, talking like this because I was outside. It's a Developing Dad podcast. You know him, right?
Developing dad.
The Developing Dad podcast. You never heard of him?
I don't know. I
I'm
might
sending
have.
I'm gonna send it to you the back chat. Yeah,
Okay.
he was doing a lot. But I was mentioning you and others from the BMU. I was saying he's trying to put a panel of well, you're married, of course, but I mean, he's trying to put a panel of singles and all of us talking about this single stuff going on because he said he feels bad for the guys. I'm like, might as well do that because if you do a panel here, you might get some people to come on and talk because I think this is a good conversation to have. I think we should all talk on this stuff, especially for the married people that want to speak their mind. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
Yeah, let me send it to you real quick. The Developing Dad. Yeah,
And well,
he's in Louisiana.
okay.
Yeah,
Yeah, I'm not the best with names or usernames, so I might have seen his face, but I probably don't remember his name.
yeah. I'm sending to your back chat. Copy paste. Yeah, he's check him out when you get a chance. There you go. But yeah, no, the topic you did tonight on the ladies and the whole wife thing and the weaker vessel. I mean, it's such a big thing to understand because I was listening to a podcast from Maggie, the substitute teacher.
Okay.
She did a live today also. It's everybody did a live on Saturday. I'm surprised. I'm like, hey, everybody's going live Saturday. I need to get my YouTube started on my lives on the Saturdays. You know what I'm saying? But it seems that she is speaking on something today earlier, which I want to derive from the topic, is that we have a lot of people not understanding that the feelings in a marriage is so temporary for a person you're with. It's like, don't let the feelings of a situation make you turn away from your husband. It's like she was speaking on it so clearly, but I think she made a good point about it, saying, with today's society, I mean, the feelings just come and go. You can't hold it against a man. It's like, you're going to be the type of woman that's going to be hurting your marriage if you don't understand, like, okay, he didn't think about it like this, and you're gonna make him think like you. It's like you can't make a man think like a woman. And she was talking about that today earlier. And your topic today is pretty much similar to what she said. And I thought, man, I gotta bring this up because I think you got a good topic in mind that's the same thing. And we need to have those talk with ladies can learn from the older women and let them understand that this is what men are asking for. We're not looking for someone to be uncooperative. We're looking for somebody to understand the plan because submissiveness is such a big thing in the church. It's like, I don't know if you noticed this, but we're creating more feminists in the black church and other churches as well, but
Speak
mostly in
on
the black. Yeah, because we have the most environment for that. Because you got to think about it. Who are the most popular preachers? The false prophets, right?
it. Hmm.
So, more false prophets means they're going to speak more on the same thing, create this cycle of a narrative that, oh, you got to be a woman on your purpose, be a woman about your money. Don't let nobody hold you back, baby. Woman, you are thou is loose. And TD Jakes. You know what I'm saying? We all know the slang, the lingo, but
Yeah.
it's not gonna stop in this society because it's money. It turned on its head for money. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, yeah. The old woman don't have young. Yep, lost translation. You're right, bro. It's true because what are they gonna teach them? It's like because I told pastors. I've talked to pastors. I said, hey, let the men be taught by a pastor in your church or a deacon. Speak about masculinity because we're lacking that conversation. You know what I'm saying?
Hmm.
I don't. I mean, my church is okay. My pastor's he's Chinese Canadian. I'm about to leave it soon. He not helping me get a wife in the church. He wanna, I won't you don't know the church, but he tried to offer me his cousin that's 47. I'm 31. I'm like, are you crazy? Are you crazy? Are you crazy?
But are you crazy?
I'm serious. And you my pastor? I'm like, okay, okay. I drew the line right there. I'm like, you think I'm not deserving of somebody my age or young, like to at least 20 something, 25 and up, baby? 30, I'm 31. You a 47-year-old cousin? Your cousin that's Asian? Sorry, I'm not doing that. And I'm like, who does that? You know what I'm saying? And this is a pastor I trust. Come on, man. I'm like, trying to
Did
keep me,
did
trying to
she
take.
have any kids?
I didn't even ask because I didn't care.
Oh,
I'm not trying to figure out her life because that's Indonesian lifestyle over there. I don't know what they got going, but I wouldn't pick somebody older than me. That's just my personal preference. But no, and that's my call. The train is coming. It's time to be free.
oh, how the
Yeah.
fuck you guys can hear that?
Oh, I hear that. Yeah.
Oh wow.
You got you over there running trains and stuff with some memories, some slaveries. Running past lives over there.
Oh
Past
my
lives.
goodness.
Oh my gosh. But yeah, yeah, my parents said, no, you can't find you a wife. No, I didn't ask him to find me a wife. He offered me his cousin, like on a silver platter, like Moses, this is of my cousins. I'm like, I don't. She's too old for me. I can't have kids with her. What would that do for? I mean, I don't even have kids. You see anybody in the back? Nobody behind me. No kids here. I'm by myself. Why would I want someone that's no? I mean, she needs somebody that's older than me. I'm not. Please,
Right, because I'm assuming that you probably want to have your own kids.
bingo. And I'm actually breaking a curse in my family that I saw. My mom and dad were both single parents, so they came together with kids and they got together, which is an ideal situation, right? But I'm not about to start with someone with kids. I'm sorry, it's not for me, because that was in my family because my parents didn't. They came from Africa. They didn't know this, so they just got together and they saw, hey, we got kids. Let's make a family, and we already have family started, so why not? You know, and I don't have a reason to start a family with somebody with kids because it never gave me no motivation to be like in that position. I just don't see the point for me personally. It's just not my calling. But yeah, the goal is to start over, make a new line of kids with families intact, not divided in different families. You know what I'm saying? It has to
Hmm.
be that way for me because I think that's a generation curse for so many people. They have to break it through their next children or the next generation, or or they're gonna repeat it and then single parent, or things happen. I know widows and stuff pop up with deceased spouses and stuff. But I want to ask you a question. What is your thoughts on the word partnership in marriage? Because you're married, so I'm curious what you think about that.
The word partnership when it comes to marriage.
Yeah, the word partnership, but they say, yeah, this is my partner versus like companion. Like, what do you think about that?
I like the term partner, because for one, it comes from the mainstreaming of the LGBT community. They call each other partner. So that
Hmm.
way people didn't know that their person that they were with was of the same gender.
Hmm.
Um, and so I don't like that. I mean, just that knowing that rubs me the wrong way.
Hmm.
But two, it just feels too modern, and I don't know. It seems because the whole point of the stream is that marriage obligations, and so when you talk about your spouse as your partner, I feel like it's trying to make everything too equal. And I believe that men and women are equal in value, but they don't serve the same purpose. And so they don't do the same things. And then also, I feel like spouse is a cherished term. Anybody can be your partner. That can be your law partner, that can be your cop partner, that can be your boyfriend. I worked hard. I mean, I I worked hard to become a spouse. I I took care of myself to become somebody's wife, and dadgummit, I'm going to be called his wife. Okay. So I mean, there's just a few reasons that I don't care for that term, but I think the mindset of maybe partnership is not, it's not all the way bad. You know, if you look at it like, I guess I would prefer the term team. You know,
Mhm.
if I feel like, if you look at it from the perspective of, my husband is not my enemy, my wife is not my enemy, we are on the same team. You know, the problems that we encounter is not him versus her, or like she versus him and her versus him. It is us versus the problem. You know, like if your wife has, you know, an addiction to something, like if she's addicted to cigarettes or marijuana or whatever, it's not you versus her, it's both of y'all versus this addiction, and you guys trying to overcome this as a team. Or if, my husband were to lose his job, it's not me versus him, it's us versus his unemployment. And so, I think that is a positive mindset. And so I guess people would say, oh, well, you're splitting hairs, team, partner, it's the same thing. But I just prefer the word, like, if you look at your marriage like you guys are a team, then that's healthy. But if you look at your husband like he's your partner, I feel like that can I feel like that can leave things too murky and vague.
Mm. Yeah, that's a good point of view. I appreciate you sharing. Thank you. You know, I thought about the partnership term, and I've always tried to refer to different people's views and try to look at what they're saying, actually what they think. I know Kevin, rest in peace. He spoke on this whole thing, and I did some deep diving on that word partnership. And funny thing to know, I did a interview in the past with a guy named Rocky Lee from Vancouver, Canada, on my own podcast, and it's still up there. But the thing is, he broke it down and he made a point of which I liked. He said on his own show, he said, partnership is a term used for business. So you think about a business, you think about how it is with a company. You come under the marriage as the main company because you're both separate business of LLCs, right? So you come to that business of marriage, you're basically coming together, but you're taking on your own identity, but you're not losing your identity. You're actually getting that identity through God's word, which is giving you both spousal for support of each other, right? So if you look at that context, marriage is the company and you're under the company of marriage, but you're not losing your company. You're actually getting more of an identity because your spouse is seeing more inside of you to tell you who you are through a mirror in a sense. So you're not losing much of yourself. You're losing nothing but just the single life. What is there, right? Nothing. But now your marriage is under contract, but it's not a company like you were in singleness. You were just a company by itself. But you're under that same rule as a company will be in marriage, is what I'm trying to say. But other than that, that's just what it is. I mean, marriage is supposed to be like a companionship is the word I want to say. And the
Mm.
partnership, it seems more like a business where, oh, we don't work out, where I'm taking my shares and we're 50-50, we're dividing this whole house and his children. We're gonna take part of this, take part of that. It seems like that word, I don't know. It just I'm not a fan of the whole like not saying I'm not a fan of I'm not saying their name because I'm gonna make it sound bad. I'm not a part of the Jewish community, okay, but I know because they watching. Um, I say this because they have a book called "Marriage Is Not a Partnership," and I looked it up. I was like, this is a legit book they made, and they had a YouTube talking about it. If you type just that word, if anybody types this in, you'll see it pop up. Marriage is not a partnership, and they're talking about like, yeah, we know marriage is not a partnership, and we're pretty much just seeing marriage as a union between men and women. It's not a partnership. It's a leading role for the man, and the woman is doing her role. And they broke it down. I'm like, but they got the word right, and they're not even saying it and offended. We say that partnership, we just like, oh, we just partners. You know what I'm saying? We just boys and girls and holding hands to the sunset. If we don't work out, we take a half. You know what I'm saying? It's just partnership is, I don't know. I don't want to talk too much, but it just seems so lost. I don't think that word should be used, partnership, because it doesn't seem like that. Partnership is like you're doing half and half, but you're not 50-50 though.
Yeah, it makes it sound more clinical.
Yeah, it's like a business.
Yeah. And so I definitely get what you're saying. Oh, we got somebody who wants the link. So, David, if you could drop the link one more time, please.
They got to drop
Um,
down.
No, I don't think you need to drop down.
Okay.
When the panel can be civil, we can have multiple people on at one time. Yesterday, I went live, and it got out of hand very
Oh,
quickly.
I was even there. Thank God I wasn't there. I would have been
Oh my
throwing my
goodness, it turned
oh,
into a circus in no time.
it'd been a
Uh,
bloodbath.
yeah, yes. And so I well, yesterday was a more hot topic. I was talking about atheism versus theism, but so this
Okay.
isn't quite as um, hot as a topic, so people can usually have cooler heads.
Hey, how
So,
y'all guys doing today?
What's up, my guy?
hello, E. How are you this evening?
I am doing good. We're talking about marriage, and this is my wheelhouse, so I wanted to hop up for a second.
Yeah, we're talking about marriage obligations. So, what do you think are some obligations that are that belong in marriage?
I think a lot of obligations, but can I comment on what y'all already talking about before I change it?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
So when we started talking about partnership, everybody automatically default that partnerships are 50-50, right? I run a business, and in business, partnerships usually are not 50-50. You might have somebody who have an 80% owner stake versus somebody who have a 20% owner stake, and they're still partners, even though that their equity is different. So when we actually use the word partner in marriage, I do agree with you guys that the LGB, elemental P, ABC, whatever, they done messed up the mindset towards partnership. But in most cases, if you ask someone that is married, do you see my spouse as a partner? Most people would answer that question yes, before the alphabet community kind of took over that type of word. So I do think it's a spiritual relationship between in marriage that I think some people discount, but it's also a business relationship in marriage too, because I do take a contract with the government with my wife. So I think it's two elements in this that we try not to talk about, but it's more than just one sided. So we have what we call the spiritual from the God contract. This is the oath that I took before God, but I also have the marriage contract that I actually took with the state, saying that me and her are coming from one person to become, I mean, coming from two separate entities to become one. So I don't think partnership is a bad word. And it doesn't mean that you have to be 50-50 if you understand partnership in business. I just think that they have a negative connotation because of who use it the most.
Okay. And I can definitely see that perspective, essentially, especially since you brought up how marriage involves the government. Um, and so, yeah, I can see what you're saying, and how also because you said that, a partnership is not inherently 50-50, like a lot of, people today want it to be. I guess I would say most of women, um, they say that, it needs, well, I mean, I don't know. I guess it's 50-50. People who say it should be 50-50. A lot of men today are saying it should be 50-50, but um, a lot of women are saying that as well, because a lot of women are, the tide is turning, and so nowadays women are getting slapped with alimony at the end of a marriage, and so women are like, oh well, I just need to come in, and I need to leave with what I brought, and you can't take any of my stuff. So
But it's proven that it's no such thing as 50-50 if alimony is at the end. That means that
Yeah.
we wasn't equal. So that's the whole
Hmm.
point. When people say that it's 50-50, a true 50-50 relationship is I gain nothing from this marriage and you gain nothing either. We both actually leaving whole because we came into this relationship whole. So if I'm paying you alimony, if I'm paying you child support, if I'm paying you this means that I had I had a greater stake. I made more money, so now I have to pay you more. So like if anytime alimony is allotted at the end of a marriage, you was not in a 50-50 marriage, because that means that a 50-50 marriage says I made 75, she made 75, we didn't make anything more or less. So when we part ways, we're both at whole. Hey, I got the kids 50% of the time, you got the kids 50% of the time, so I don't even have to pay child support. So when people quote unquote say they want a 50-50 percent marriage, they really don't. Most women don't want to pay 50% of these bills. It's cap.
Makes sense. I like that.
yeah,
But
absolutely.
but I do think it is some obligations in marriage, right? And I know that some people don't come from a biblical point of view, so they might disagree with me. But I do think that. I think it is my responsibility to take care of my wife and our offspring. What does that mean? That means that it's not my wife's responsibility to financially to support. Now, I'm not a tyrant. I'm not telling her she don't want to work, she can't work. That's not what I'm saying. I believe at the end of the day, I believe as a man, when you take on a wife, you're saying that you're going to take on all of the expenses that actually come with the wife. So when we first started talking about obligations of marriage, I think a man should not take on a woman if he can't take on the debt that she has and he cannot financially support that woman. But that's my opinion, and I understand that the world thinks that that is different.
Makes sense. I think it's good that you're putting it out there like that. That makes perfect sense. I think that we all should understand how to vet properly because everybody's not called to be married. I'm not saying they can't be, but the ones who want marriage are doing it for selfish reasons. The ones who do deserve to be married are the ones who are faithfully just trying to do the right thing and create a new line of people that we're trying to produce in this world. Because the biggest goal we all trying to do in the body of Christ is to develop a whole new a mindset of people that want to be better than us. That's the goal, is to create better people. And the people have to become that through us. And we have to show that through our life as best examples possible. You know what I'm saying? So I'm fully with you on that, man. There's just too many people who don't have the understanding of marriage. They just want the title.
So and I believe in marriage, the obligation is for the man and the woman to be submitted, not submitted to each other, but submission is required for a husband to be submitted to God, and it is also required for a woman to be submitted to men. A lot of people ask this question is, can a woman be submitted to me if I'm not submitted to God? I believe since you're out of order, your woman will also be out of order. So you're asking her to do something that you're not willing to do. So I think submission is not just by gender. Both people are required to be submitted in a marriage. So
But
I
here's
think that's the obligation.
But here's something to remember though: the woman that submits to the husband that she's married to already, if he is, if now let's remember, Scripture says if he isn't, if he's telling you to commit sin, you don't submit. Even if he's not a believer, if you married a non-believer, which would be unwise, right? You married a non-believer, and you're called to submit, and you're a believer, you have to submit to unbeliever husband still, sadly. And I wouldn't even say just because I can not say that because Scripture, but we have to remember that if you chose this man you want to submit under, you are obligated to submit. And that doesn't mean no, it's sin. If it's sin, you can't submit. But if they're not calling you to sin, then you can't deny that. Because remember, if you're under submission to your man, you're doing it because you're doing it for glory of God. It's not against you or him, it's for God's glory because you're doing it for him. But if he's telling you to sin, you don't submit to your husband in anything he does.
So do you believe that a man can hold a woman accountable for what he's not doing? That's the point that I'm making. I'm saying that she
Mhm.
can. But if he is not submitted to God, I don't believe a man can actually hold a woman accountable for not being submitted to him. Because it's almost like do as I say and not as I do. You must be
Mm,
submitted if you require submission. But that's just what I have read.
okay, let's make an example. You're saying if he was going somewhere and she was trying to tell him like go left, and he said, we're going right," and she says, "No, I'm going to go left," even though he is the leader of the family and she knows that he's still the head of the home. Do you telling me that is that same context that you're saying that?
I got what you're saying. So let me give you an example. If God told the man to go left, right, and the man said we're going right outside of sin, right?
Yeah.
So what I am saying, him not being submitted to God, also because I think we sow into our marriage. Men don't understand my behavior with God actually sow behaviors through my wife, right? Women actually follow us more than we think we do. They do, right? So what I'm saying is me not being submitted to God will also soar her not being submitted to me. I think those two things actually go hand in hand.
So he's not submitted to God, but she should not be submitted to him. Is that what you're
No, I
saying?
didn't say should not be. I'm saying typically, if I am showing unsubmission She typically is also operating in what I do. I believe women multiply what we are. I don't think that they bring something new, especially the woman you chose. I'm not talking about the ratchet woman at the club that you don't want. We talking tonight, we talking about marriage. We talking about the women that we choose and that we want, right? And typically when men are out of alignment, women are out of alignment too. And when men are in alignment, the women fall under alignment with those men. We see it all the time in this space.
No, but usually the women picking the men they think they want is always the wrong one. And they're the ones picking those Pookies and Ray Rays that act like they men of God and they come reformed, right? And then they say they're Christian and then they go back to the old ways. You know what I'm saying? Usually the case. Oh, yeah.
Uh-oh.
You know what? Either man is correct.
All right.
I'm gonna give him his props, man. Here's the thing, man. I just thought about something. Shout out to Either Man. We was in the comment section talking. He was like, you know, is marriage a business? I said, no, marriage is God's business. And I thought about it. I was like, you know what? I said, God is just like McDonald's. You know what I'm saying? McDonald's got rules and regulations on how they franchise this thing out. You know what I'm saying? Think about it. In every McDonald's you go to, they got a rule book. You know what I'm saying? How you supposed to run your McDonald's. They got what you can sell, what you can't sell. You know what I mean? All of that stuff. They got pretty much the prices or whatever. And you agree, you know what I'm saying, to go by the rules of McDonald's. You know what I'm saying? You get them a cut. You know what I'm saying? So I just thought about it. I said, marriage is pretty much just like McDonald's. It's like a franchise. You know, a lot of people think that McDonald's is in the hamburger business, but it's not. McDonald's is in the real estate business. And once you think about it, God is not in the religion business. God is in the real estate business, because what he wants you to do, he wants to take up residence in your heart. You see what I'm saying? He wants you to go about building the kingdom one person at a time. So how we do that, he gives you a manual. It's called the Bible. You know what I'm saying? He gives you a whole bunch of stories and instructions on how you run your marriage, you know, and vice versa. And anytime when people try to stray outside of the owner's manual, then we always mess this thing up. Even the Bible tells you, you know, what God put together, let no man put asunder. You see what I'm saying? So what happens is a lot of times people try to take marriage and make it what it ain't. They try to put paint where it ain't. And then they wonder why their marriage is not successful. Well, that's because you didn't go by the rules of the franchisee. You know what I'm saying? By the big franchise. And if you think about it, like I said earlier, God is not in the religion business. He's in the real estate business. You see what I'm saying? He wants to build up the kingdom inside each and every person. So I think if we look at it that way, and we start looking at marriage as if we go by the rules of how marriage is set up, then we should have successful marriages.
And I think to also talk about E's point is that, you know, because he says, should the man expect submission from his wife if he is not in submission to God? And I think that that actually is the perfect application of the verse that gets so commonly twisted and used out of context, which is Matthew 7:1, which says, judge not, lest thou be judged by what measure you judge others. You know, take the speck out of your eye before, you know, you tell someone to get the log out of your eye before you get the speck out of someone else's eye. Right. And so it's like, you know, the husband would really not be in a good position to criticize his wife for not submitting if he's not submitting to God. Right. But the wife should still submit to her husband, because at the end of the day, she doesn't answer to him, she answers to God. And so like Nia was saying, you know, your marriage is for the glory of God, and that, you know, you're submitting to God. And so, yeah, you know, if your husband is backslidden, like, because even if he's not even unsaved, he could be saved, but he's just backslidden and walking in the flesh, and he's making bad choices, you know, it is still, you know, he's responsible for his actions, and he's going to answer to God for his actions. But you, as the wife, are now responsible for your actions. And what God told you hasn't changed. God still told you to submit to your husband. And so it's unfortunate when that happens, because, you know, now you guys can end up in a really sticky spot. but the command still stands that wives submit to your husband. But to what you were saying, it would fall on deaf ears. Like, it wouldn't mean anything if the husband said it, but she should know in her own heart that I need to still submit because God told me to.
Well, no, I get what you're saying, but and I don't want to dive into the Bible because I think it's so much bigger than the Bible, right? It's so much bigger than that, right? But I just want to pull something out to make the point that I'm making, right? So in the Bible, when it says wives submit unto your husband as it talks about the church, right? So Jesus had already sacrificed for the church, right? Like he already let's get away from the Bible because I do. So I get what you're saying, what's supposed to happen, but the whole point that I was trying to make is that women typically multiply what you give them. If I come home and I'm angry and I'm pissed off, and my wife know that the Bible tells her not to be angry and pissed off, she's typically gonna multiply that energy that I'm giving her. So I
Yeah.
get it. I get we said that women's supposed to be these spiritual people who don't have emotions or not attached to this fleshly world. You're right, but I don't think that happens in reality. And so I just understand. I remember one time I was fasting and I was doing this thing, and me and my wife was disagreeing about something. And what happened is once I started fasting and doing some things right, my wife immediately, said, you know what, I see your point of this, that, and the third. I was wrong, and she acknowledged that thing. And I believe that it came because I rededicated myself to God. And that's the whole point that I'm saying is sometimes we think, let's fix the other person, let's fix the other person. But when I do the rededication, I have learned everything. My kids, guess what? My kids come under authority. My wife come under authority. Everything comes under authority because it starts with me. That's the point that I'm making.
Yeah. Yeah. I see your point. Just speaking from a carnal perspective, that yeah, 9 times out of 10, if the husband is out of whack, the wife will be out of whack. And what the Bible says is what the Bible says, but people are going to do what they're going to do. So yeah, I totally agree with that. Yeah, the husband should be leading by example.
I'm going to chat GPT that to find that scripture exactly what you're talking about. I want to post something on that. Hold on a second.
The one about judging?
No,
No.
he was talking about the unbeliever husband and the whole
Oh.
thing.
Oh, I know what you're talking about. Yeah. Even if your spouse is backslidden, your spouse can still cover you by doing what's right. That's what Jenny's talking about. What Edom Man's talking about, if you sow discord, then expect discord to keep going. You know what I'm saying? And if you sow diligence, then you should expect diligence back. That's the law of reaping and sowing. So he's absolutely correct.
But you're right. I done seen dudes who backslide and they woman get in the presence of God and her actually just doing the right thing. He being crazy and he doing all this stuff and she loving on this man actually brought him back to Christ because he's seen Christ through his wife. So I'm not disagreeing with what you guys are saying too, because we're both talking truth in my opinion.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay. So it says here, 1 Corinthians 7:14 says, Apostle Paul writes, for the unbelieving husband is sanctified by the wife.
See?
The unbelieving wife is sanctified by the husband. Elsewhere, your children are unclean, but now are they holy? So in short terms, it means for a believing spouse married to an unbeliever, this passage encourages patience, love, persistent in faith, and offer hopes that through their example and the grace of God, the unbelieving spouse might come to faith. However, it is essential to understand that each person's salvation is ultimately a personal decision in response to God's grace. So, I mean, at the end of the day, if he's not going to be changed and she's still in obedience to the Lord, I mean, she'll be fine. But if he's that much impactful, what I heard, she threw it all away and she for the streets like him, that's on your personal salvation. You know what I'm saying? That's pretty much what it means.
Well, no, so can I elaborate on that just a
Sure.
little bit? All
Go
right,
ahead.
so this is what was happening people who had got married before they got into the Corinthian church and said, hey, what do I supposed to do with this man? I done got saved. I'm together now. And this man is still unsaved. So Paul was actually talking to the Corinthian church, telling them that. That's not how God designed it. Because God also, before this, tells us, if you unequally yoke, y'all need to stay apart from each other. So this was people who was coming into the church, and they had accepted God for their salvation, but they were still with the unbeliever. He was saying, hey, since you did the right thing, you can do this thing over time, but that wasn't what it was supposed to be designed for. We both supposed to have a personal relationship with God, and we enter into it. So now it's not just us having the contract with the world. We also have a spiritual agreement with God, and those are the marriages that I believe can test the time. So you're right what Paul was talking about, but it wasn't for somebody who's not married to take that advice to get with unsaved person and just say, I can sanctify that person. That was somebody who's already in that situation in the Corinthian church, but that was going on.
Gotcha.
Yeah, we say that all the time when people pick the person they want, then they drag them to church. Hey, God, I need you to clean this one up.
Hey, it's
I need you
always,
to wash them off from me right quick, you know?
and it's always, I mean, not against the guys. Anybody that's been to jail, I'm just saying, it's always those brothers they're going for. Why? Is it like that, man? Is that masculinity? Is that there? Or is it just something they're looking for that's in them that they're finding? I don't know what it is. But the brothers they pick is always the brothers who go through something harder in life. I always see that. You know what I'm saying? I don't know what it is.
Well, I can tell you what it is. Because the brothers who ain't going through something in life ain't choosing them. See, people think that women, and I know this sounds crazy,
No,
that
run
women,
that back.
hold on. I got you. I'm about to run it back for you.
Yeah,
Listen.
you lost me at that one.
I got you. I'm gonna run it back for you. See, men actually, I was having this conversation with a young lady, and most people think that they choose the jail guy or the guy that is dysfunctional is because that's what she wanted. In reality, that was the only option she had because she already had 3 kids. The dude that Microsoft wasn't checking for her. Like that's the whole point that people don't understand. It. You usually don't have women who have all their stuff together and they just go out and choose men that are dysfunctional. No, it's usually dysfunctional women choosing dysfunctional men, and they know that that's their only option. But I haven't seen a whole bunch of women who got everything together just choosing bad men because that's what they want, especially when they have the options of having a whole bunch of men. That's usually not the case.
I mean, if you think about it, the average, the most of the people are being picked in this time that we're seeing, or not even the average, but they're the least picked right now, in my opinion. But the most picked are the most desired of the men with money, of course, the more wealthy. But I think if we're looking at this from a broad spectrum, um, the most desired are the ones who are high status, but they're not usually picking them. So I get what you're saying. I just think that it's,
I think that's a YouTube talking point because you know what I did? I went
yeah,
to go work in the warehouse. And I realized in that warehouse, that dude who's making $40,000 driving that forklift, he was getting some ass. I know we want to paint this idea. And I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cuss on your show. I apologize for that first. But
It's okay.
this idea that the middle class dude don't have access to women, go to your local warehouse. The women in the warehouse is messing with these men for convenience. It's not.
yeah.
It's not about that. I guess that's the most divide. Those are the people that have access to. She don't have access to that guy who's making $150,000 downtown Bellevue, Washington. She have access to John Doe over there on the forklift, and that's who she ended up with. People usually marry people in the same field that they are in. It's not that they just going after these high value men. I know we done painted it on the line that this is the case, but I'm telling you, women are not just going after these high value men because the marriage rates wouldn't make sense if everybody was going after 10%.
But the thing is, I mean, I'm gonna just go back to one of Kevin's talking points. He made a good point. He said there's like every woman's gonna be sharing the same man. It's not stopping, but it's not saying they're marrying them. They're just sharing the same guy. I mean, it's just your turn, as they say, right? Not to sound red pill or nothing. I'm just trying to make it factual on what I'm saying. But that's just what I'm saying. I mean, maybe
But
I'm wrong.
that's the point that I'm telling you. See what happened? This is what's happening. Them forklift drivers get together. And then guess what? Now it looked like he's making 40 grand, but with her income, his income, and now they got a house that they can sell in 5 years. Now it looks like he's a high value man. That man wasn't no high value man. Listen, I promise you, if you really start talking to women, they usually get the man while he's building. They don't get these men, and then once he moved to the 10%, they're like, oh, she got a high value man. Now they built that high value together. That's a high value marriage. And I think we don't talk about that enough.
I believe it. You're right. I think that's something we should be looking at that more. It's the bigger point.
I think what happens is that the talking point that people are talking about is women speaking from their view of fantasy or what they would like to have, and not what's really going on that's being real and have reality. It's more of what either man said. In this situation, you're going to get what's convenient and what's in your stratosphere. You know what I mean? People would like to think that they will start at the top and work their way down to the bottom. But the problem is, if you do that, you're going to waste a whole lot of time. So if you're smart, go ahead and get married and work it out. You know what I'm saying? And do what you got to do and go on about your life. You know, you don't waste your time on fantasy. You know, that's a waste of time.
And I really wish when we hear people question women in these spaces, I wish they ask them what they got. Because when we ask this question, what you want, I'm gonna tell you straight up, I want $1 million house. I ain't got one. If you ask the person what they really want, they gonna shoot for the moon. I want a job making $250,000. What are you currently getting in your life? And I promise you, this whole conversation would change. Women are not gonna be saying, "I got access to a man that's making $150,000." She gonna say, "I got access to Joe Blow who driving the tractor." That's just the truth. So, and even with men, if you ask men what they want, I heard it in this conversation. I want a woman 25 without kids, this, that, and third. That's what they want. But what do they get? They usually don't get that. So that's the point that I understand.
Okay.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, because I don't know, I'm thinking about it in my own personal life. So of course this is anecdotal, but I'm thinking about the women that I know who are now single moms who, you know, now have deteriorated their sexual marketplace value. Ooh, hold on. My laptop's about to die. But I guess I'll finish this point and then I gotta go get my charger. But yeah, so these women who have now deteriorated their sexual marketplace value because they now have a child. But I'm thinking about, you know, before they had children, what kind of men were they suiting and what kind of men were they going after? And I don't know, maybe my opinion might be clouded because they're my friends, but I feel like even before they had to, you know, because now there's a certain men that they just can't have anymore. I feel like even before then, they were picking men that were beneath them, and that they were picking these hobosexuals, if you will, like these bums. Like I remember, I'll never forget. Like I had a really good friend who now has a kid, and she was just like so completely enamored with this guy who lived in his car in front of his aunt's house, and she just could not shake this guy, and I never understood what she saw in him.
But Jenny, I really got people to have to understand that man was not beneath her. They was on the same level.
But she had a really good job.
No, I don't care about her job. I don't care about CC. I think that's the thing is we look at it and we, first of all, since she's your friend, you see her a lot higher than reality, right? Because you like, man, you know what? Especially if this is the era that we see. So you can take somebody who's middle class, but they hang around a whole bunch of broke people. You be like, that guy's getting it. No, he's just around a whole bunch of broke people. He really ain't really getting it like that, right? And so, but that was her level. That is her level. Like, I know people don't like this, but I don't think the child is typically the reason the woman don't get chosen. I know that's just the thing. It's usually her attitude. It's just I'm telling you, because we see baby mamas get chosen. I see it. I think maybe it's just me in my world. I see them get chosen.
Not a high rate though.
Yes, they do. They get chosen. Listen, we did a show. It was a show on this panel, and we started asking questions. It was like, your child had a baby mama? Guess what? He said it. Your child had it, and it was like 7 guys, and 4 of the guys was with baby mamas, and they got chosen. I really don't think it's the child. I truthfully and honestly think it's the attitude, it's how she approach it. I think a woman who actually have a child should understand that she's operating at a deficit. So you know what? She might gotta wash some drawers by hand if she have to. She might gotta clean the kitchen if she have to. She might gotta wake up late at night and she might gotta fold the clothes. Like she have to go past the average woman because she gotta offset her actually having a child. And if women with children actually start giving men that are in the market what they want, I think men say, you know what? I'm willing to take those children on. I know you might not, but I'm just telling you, the men in the market would say, man, if I can get everything I want, I take it.
Well, let me say this though. I agree with what you're saying. If they operated better, because you remember, it's the software that's the problem. If the hardware is what we're not liking, as most guys don't want that in a general sense, the software, if that software is correct, they will go for that woman. But a lot of them have not changed their software program from what they became, because the hardware shows I have children, I have an estranged baby daddy, help me, help my children, be a stepdad. That's gonna turn a man off. But if she does not have that femininity aspect, that software in her, she can't get that guy. And that's gonna always be the same story for her, because I'm not saying that to slam women, because my sister and my mom were single mothers. Like I said, my parents were both single parents. But my sister, I had to get on her because I told her, in this family, we're not being single mother baby mamas. We're not doing that. And I had to pressure her to get somebody right. And she found somebody that had a kid and they got married. And they had 2 kids together. So that worked out pretty well, because it's ideal for both parents to be in a picture with children, because they know how it is. So they don't have one person walking in the situation unaware. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and I think that's what it is. So if we start saying women change your software, because one thing they can't change is them having a kid, right? It's almost like when we was talking to the Corinthian church, you can't change if you already got the husband, right? I just think those women can reposition themselves correctly. And let me say this, I'm not telling men to choose them women. I learned that when women update the software, if they reconnect to the iOS, it's funny. I got iPhone. I know some of y'all might be Androids, but you run it. If you notice, when my phone start acting up and start glitching out and different things, I have to reconnect to the software in the clouds, right? So if the women reconnect back to God and get the new software to download from God, and they actually start operating in that, I think men would choose them. I think the software is 100% right. It have nothing to do with what they did in the past.
I'll say this. I'll make an exception. I say this. If I could find one with one child and she has a great attitude, personality, and there's no crazy records of her doing things and all that past with a baby daddy, I would make an exception for one child. But anything past 2, I feel like I'm gonna be fighting for time, because I'm not gonna be in the top priority, and that doesn't mean I'm selfish. That means that I have to fight for my life to be with a woman that has a priority with her children first. That's her first.
But that's the
love.
reprogramming. See, that's the reprogram. Hold on, the reprogramming says that your husband comes before your kids. I don't care who the daddy is.
Yeah, exactly. But that's what keeping them back, though. They're not changing that because they feel like my children are first. They don't want to put that man first. That's the provider.
There's a conflict in the software, buddy.
You're not picking them.
That's the syntax error. You know what I'm saying?
A single mother will always beat them.
Trojan horse. See, that's the point that I'm telling you. It's a Trojan horse running in their software, and it's telling them that their kids come first. That's not how it's designed. If they actually
and that's why the single woman will always beat them instead of them trying to beat them. If they want to do it, they could have beat the single woman with kids if they wanted to get it, but they don't want to change. I bet a single girl in another country with children will probably get me better than an American woman. I'll tell you that right now.
But it's just an inconvenience, and I get it. You might got a whole bunch of money, right? You might got the money, and I'm not against passport bros and you going to get the guy.
I don't subscribe with that, but I know
I'm not saying that. But what people don't understand is, if I'm talking about, I'm a dude, I'm making average income $50,000, right? Yeah. I can't go over to Taiwan and get me no woman. I gotta get me one here. And so then I'm gonna start asking myself is, if I can align with someone who got the right software, what's the best option of that woman I can get? I think the best option is the woman without kids. But if you in the market and you don't have that, right? You might choose the woman, like you said, with one kid. And I just think it's happening so often, and when we paint this picture that women with kids are not getting chosen, I just think it's not true. It's not a true statement.
I mean, I get what you're saying, bro. I don't think they're the most desired because that's just what it is. And no shot at them. Like I said, my folks, I have a couple of those who went through that and they're married now, but they gotta understand what are you doing to stand out from the other women that are single? Because you gotta remember, if you're older and you're a single mother, I've said this story so many times to my guys, and we talk about it in conversations at night. We talked about it like, bro, we're single. What is going on? We're not bad dudes, not selling drugs, we're not drinking, got drunk out here. We're trying to get married. We're looking at all the aspects of why we're not finding it. We're looking at the situation as the feminists. It's been in most of the churches because feminism is pushed. Some of them are having kids. Some of them have issues with submission to a man. Like I said, they don't trust men. They think we're the problem. But the problem is we're not looking at the aspect of how do we get to understand each other, but they're not looking, they're not trying to learn from us. They're going through different people. It's like we don't want wigs and weaves. I'm sorry. Because that's one of my biggest issues. I don't like that stuff. I just don't. It's just not for me.
You know what, Edom? I think we probably need to look at this thing from both sides.
Yeah.
Think about it this way: how society has painted men as bad people. You know, if you're a single man and you trying to date this chick that's a single mom, they're automatically going to paint you as a creep. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And then what happens is the mom's like, I'm gonna wait till my child get 18 before they grow up, and then I'll start dating. Well, that just takes a woman off the market right there. So when you have situations like that, it already makes it difficult. And then on the other side, you have guys who say that, hey, I'm not going to date a woman with kids because I would never come first. You know what I'm saying? So there's that rhetoric. But at the end of the day, if you find somebody who knows how to operate that thing properly, it speaks to what you said earlier. Yeah, you can get away with it, but it's going to be a lot difficult given what's in the atmosphere. They're going to have to spend a whole lot of time together. I tell people anytime you want to get good at something, you got to spend at least 10,000 hours doing it. Well, the problem is we don't have enough people spend enough time with each other. So they try to shortcut, the getting to know you process with, marital exercises, as Miss Jenny like to call it, you know what I'm saying, trying to speed that thing up. When in essence, you probably shouldn't be doing that anyway, because it's going to cause you to overlook red flags. Yeah. So I think that's the issue that we have. But like I said earlier, man, if you don't, pick up the owner's manual to this marriage thing and you keep trying to do, the opposite, don't expect the results that you want to get out of it if you want to do what you want to do. Whatever you're doing is going to give you whatever it is that you were supposed to be getting out of it when you do it your way. Yeah. But if you do it God's way, then he already promised it's going to be like he said it was going to be. But you have to make sure you find somebody, who's going to be in alignment with how y'all want to do
it.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And to address kind of what the both of you were saying, because you're saying that it's a myth that these baby mamas aren't getting chosen. But I guess that what people are saying is that generally speaking, that they are less desirable. And I had to step away for a minute to get my charger. But I did catch right when you were saying that it's not always necessarily the kid that makes the woman undesirable, but it's the attitude. And I do agree with that to an extent. And it's funny that you say that, because I was thinking about that. Because, a lot of the times the kind of mindset that a woman has that allows her to become a single mom is really the problem. Because women who are divorced will oftentimes get remarried and they have kids. Or if a woman was attacked and she has a child due to that, then I'm sure most guys would probably still pursue her. But I think that a lot of times when women become single moms, it's because they make poor choices. They're impulsive. They, choose pookies. They, they're just poor. They just make poor choices in general. And so the child is just a result of just one of their bad choices that they made. And so therefore they just don't make good spouses. So that's why they're really undesirable. And so like how I was thinking about, what was it? I forgot, I was going to bring that along with something else, but yeah, how, it's not always exactly that the woman is, because she has a kid, then now she is inherently less desirable. I mean, I think she is overall less desirable than a woman who doesn't have a kid, because usually she's going to be older as well. But, if if she has a proper mindset, if she really has changed and she's like, I'm willing to be submissive and I'll, do all the stuff that you want me to do, and I'm a woman of God now, then if she can redeem some of her lost value.
Well, it's two different types of baby mamas, right? All
Yeah.
right, and
Yeah,
I'm gonna break it
this.
down to you, right?
Yeah, please break it down.
Let's see, because they ain't the same. I want to be clear, they ain't the same. I understand the woman who did not know God, and she conceived the child. I understand that because I can't expect her to operate like a believer if she's not a believer, right? What I don't understand is the woman who know God and become a single mom. That's a whole nother conversation. And what I have learned is the women who did not know God, who produced the child, and then they actually got present inside of understanding who they were in God, they changes their way. But the woman who already know God and still make those knowingly make those decisions, she's usually stuck in her ways. So I'm just telling, if you really start having conversation with women, it's usually two different types of women. It's the woman who refused to listen to God and the woman who did not know better. And we try to put them all in the same category, and they're not. They're not the same. One person just didn't know, and one person is just not listening to what the Father then told them.
To piggyback off what Either Man said, there's actually a hierarchy to this thing. You start at the very top, you got a virgin, then you got slightly used, and then, then if you gotta pick a woman with kids that's a widow, you know what I'm saying? Because that's got no fault of her own. Then you got the divorcee, and then the baby mama at the bottom. You know what I'm saying?
You missed the certified pre-owned. That's the certified pre-owned.
Certified pre-owned.
That's the used, but like new.
Gently loved, previously loved. You know what I'm saying?
Oh gosh.
See, certified
what is that?
pre-owned.
What is that?
That a mechanic have combed through this car and said that this car is still mechanically sound.
Hey,
versus the
that's
used
all right.
car
The Carfax, you know what I'm saying?
I respect that. That's a good way to put it, though. I respect that.
So yeah, but the question that we got to ask is, because I've been having conversation with men too, and I asked men this question. I said, "Would you want a virgin? Would you want a woman who's not been touched?" And a lot of men say no. I know it sounds crazy, and I think,
Either Man, listen.
What do you listen to?
Listen, Either Man, listen. Here's the problem with that. I don't think they're being honest with you, man.
No,
because these are the same guys who will argue about body count.
That's right.
You should think about it. These are the same guys who will argue about body count.
No, I think they're telling the truth, because the reason I say I think they're telling the truth is because these also men said they don't want to marry a woman without test driving the car. That takes the virgin out. It removes the virgin, because if she's a virgin, that means you don't get the test drive. So I actually think that they're being honest, that they don't want that. They don't want to stay with this woman and get married to her. I'm just telling you what I think.
They out here puppy dogging these cars, man.
Exactly. Playing the game.
Messing up the mileage, running up the mileage on these cars, man. You know what I'm saying?
And then these women want to claim to be born again virgins, so throw them back the old dollar.
Yeah.
Like it's illegal.
Yes, man.
Pre-certified as is. You know what I'm saying?
So I think men, the most desired woman is the woman that is used but very low mileage, because they are being chosen way more than the virgin.
You think they're getting chosen more than the virgin?
Absolutely. If you ask,
you only get to be a virgin once, so
right.
If you ask most men the question, the woman that they married, was she a virgin or she was low mileage? Most men gonna say he got the low mileage virgin.
I think they're saying that because they're sour grapes, man. I don't think they had access to a virgin, to be honest.
And
I'm just saying that'll be the same way if a woman says, "I don't want a man with a whole lot of money. I just want to be comfortable." Well, what exactly does that mean? You know what I mean?
So I'm just saying, I don't think people understand what comes with being a virgin. So say for example, a woman that's a virgin ain't gonna hang out with you after a certain time.
No, she's not.
So that's what I'm saying. Now you talking about the latest I can be with you is 8 o'clock, and you talking about you got to go home, because she knows she at your house at 10:30, 11 o'clock. You know, them legs gonna be open just like McDonald's. So, like I'm telling, it's certain things. It's certain things that happen with a virgin
Man,
that men say, "Why can't I have access to you?" Because she have to preserve herself in a certain way that men just not gonna like. So,
Well, that means they're going to have to put a ring on it, right?
yeah.
Right?
but then that comes to the question that we ask is, do men really desire to be married? Because I believe the men who want to be married typically get married, and the men who don't want to get married don't get married.
Well, we know what the men who don't want to get married want. They want 20 in the front and 40 in the back.
So worse.
You knew that was covered, Jen.
Oh my goodness. I think that if you were to ask these same guys, was their woman a virgin when they got married? I think if you were to ask them, would you have married her even quicker, or would you have preferred her more? If she were a virgin, I think that they would say, yeah, because like you said, people only have access to what they have access to. I've never even met a millionaire for me to say that I would want, I had the opportunity to even get with one. So, people just, they're with who they have access to. But if a man met a woman who he liked, and then it just so happened that she was still a virgin, then he would be like, I got to do everything I can get a hold of you. Like, I'm not going to let you get anywhere. So I think that people at a certain point, they just kind of accept their surroundings and they accept their circumstances. But the ideal will still always be the ideal. Like if a woman can get a man who's 6'6", she will. But if she only has access to men who are 5'11", then she'll go with him.
I hear you, but like I said, I know women that are virgin and men don't want to be nowhere close to them. I get what you saying.
Well, are they ugly?
No, they're not ugly. So
Are they trying to be husbands?
So I think it's hard. It's hard for me to say that man's trying to be a husband because I have a rule: if you ain't married, you ain't trying to be. Like I really, truthfully, in my mind, think that if a man wanted to manifest a wife, he can manifest a wife. And that might be just a limited way of my thinking. I can't see myself like wanting something. Like I have accomplished everything I wanted. Why would I think I couldn't accomplish a wife? Like that. That's just how my mind works. And I understand some men don't think that way. But I just look at it. So when we ask the question, we say men who want to be married, right? I always ask that question is, what steps have you done to move towards marriage? And I think once we start diving into those things, I don't think they really moving towards that way.
Yeah, I think you're right, man. Because think about it. If you add it all up, man, and you say, hey, look, you start asking the real questions. What is it going to take for you to get married? How much money do you think you're going to need? What type of lifestyle do you want to lead? What type of woman? Where you want to live at? That type of thing. If we removed all those obstacles out of the way and we found you a woman that's ideal for you, what would it take for you to get married? And I think that's when we'll start getting down to the brass tacks. I think we have people who want to get married, but they haven't done the actual work to know what it takes to be married. And I think they give you the answers that you hear about, I wouldn't necessarily want a virgin. I wouldn't necessarily want to live here or there. But if you removed all the excuses and give them what they need, I think you'll probably get a lot honest answer, to be honest.
Yeah, I think it's possible.
So Dolo TV, and I ain't trying to put you on the spot. I know you said you desire to get married, right?
Right. Mm-hmm.
So if you found the woman that you felt was right, how long would it take you to make a decision that that's the woman for you?
So I wouldn't take long. I mean, if I'm being honest, I would say 9 to 12 months because personally, and I'm gonna share this because I think it's personal for me, but it's also good to know because there's good guys out here I've talked to. I was previously married. Now, shocker, right? But the thing was, it was a rush situation. Now, I didn't take time to know the person. It was a rush thing for like 3 months. So what I learned from that, because I was a virgin. Now, after taking that experience as a virgin from 7 months, now annulment, right? That the thing's out the system, right? So after learning from that situation, I now have to vet the person a little bit longer because the last one wasn't really who they were. So I would pick somebody because I have one body count for that reason, because I did not believe in sleeping around. And mind you, I was an atheist before I got Christ. So I would want to wait for marriage because that makes more sense for me to do it again that way. Because I never seen the point of sleeping around because I've always been skeptical of AIDS, HIVs, etc. All the things showing up on today's society. So I would want to take 9 to 12 months. It wouldn't take that long because I know what to look for, and I've been coached before, after my healing from my situation in that marriage, because that was my first time. So we need to understand that whole conversation, and then we'll know if she's right for me or not. I mean, I'll take my time because I know what I'm looking for. I don't have a lot to worry because I'm not coming with a lot of baggage, honestly.
Absolutely. I think with the mindset you have, you'll find a wife. Absolutely. Now,
Yeah, it might not be in America though. Let's be real.
yeah,
Because
well, I'm
I'm just
not,
being
listen,
real. Yeah,
I'm the type, I'm telling you, I'm the wrong one. I tell you, you get the best one. I don't care if she come purple. If she come purple from Mars and she's what you need, you take it. Don't let people try to box you in when it comes down to finding your special person. That's just me, right? But so I think it can, especially if you are encountering relationships, it won't be long before your marriage if you have that mindset. And I think, because it sounds like this is all recent that you make the mindset that you wanted to be married?
no, I've been marriage minded since 18 when I got saved because I wanted to be. I see my mom and dad married for most of my life, and
Mm-hmm.
they weren't really practicing Christians. They saved, but they didn't practice it at home. They saved, but they weren't doing it. But the thing is, seeing them married, I've always wanted that. 'Cause I see my mom how my dad treated her, and my mom how she treated my dad, and that made me realize, man, I want to be married one day. But I always knew, I wanted to wait because I felt like if I fell in love with the right person, then I probably start, sleeping around. But it never happened, thankfully. You know what I'm saying? I mean, I wasn't that the most higher desire, right? I was just the guy passing by. So I'm
But
actually glad.
you're actively vetting women currently, right?
Yeah, I mean, I've talked
Oh
to
yeah.
some, but everybody's not, I mean, I get to know the foundation. If I see the foundation not too well, I'll keep it pushing. I'm not gonna put more into someone that's not there. You know what I'm
Oh
saying?
yeah. I think definitely if you in the market, you'll find it. Like
Yeah.
typically what I have learned, and I could be wrong, anybody who's actively looking for a wife, they typically don't stay on the market more than 18 months. They usually find it. If they're active, and I'm not talking about the person who they dated 3 women and they say all women are bad and they just take themselves off the market. But if you actively trying to find it, I believe it's gonna be a woman that say, hey, what I'm saying, I'm willing to be who I need to be for you. But that's just my opinion.
Well, today's market and dating is just it's ridiculous. I'm in Dallas, so it's wild out here. People don't want to be themselves. That's the problem.
Well, here's the thing: once you get good at picking, then it becomes easier because you already know that don't qualify.
Yeah, it's a lot
So it
easier.
makes it a
You're
whole
right.
lot easier.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
That's,
then you get crazy like me. I remember when I met my wife, I said, let me see your credit. It was like 2 days in, and people was like, why? They said, why would you ask those crazy questions? I already knew what I wanted. And if she wasn't willing to show me her credit and be transparent, I said, here go my credit. You know what I'm saying? How much you owe? If she just wasn't willing to be transparent, I didn't want to waste time with her. Right. And
yeah.
I think so many people waste time. And that's why they waste time. And then after a while, they don't understand. They learn from that waste time and they project that into their future relationships. Right. But I think if you know what you want, like you got it down on paper. I know people say you shouldn't do this, but men should know what they want. They should have it down on paper. Like I mean, from I said, hey, I don't want a woman with more than I think it was like $15,000 in debt. So if you had $100,000 in school debt, you was off my market, right? And people,
Facts.
Man.
and people thought I was crazy, but that was one of them. That's why I wanted to see the credit. Another thing is I wanted a woman who typically was willing to do wifely duties, and I know people say women shouldn't do this before we got married. I remember when me and my wife first started dating. I had to I had to go to work for something. Got called in. I left her at my house. She cleaned the whole house. She cooked me a meal.
Mm,
She was ironing
mm,
my clothes. She was doing all
mm,
these kind of things. And I
mm.
was like, who is you? I was trying to make sure she ain't hiring nobody. I'm looking back at the cameras. Somebody, you let Molly Mae come up here and do these things.
You thought
So
R.
I was
Kelly was in the
looking.
closet.
So I was looking for these things, and she presented. Because you got to remember, it's a woman's responsibility to show you that she's a wife. A
Yeah.
woman actually supposed to show you that, hey, I'm a wife, and you supposed to take me off the match. This idea that women supposed to wait till they get married to start doing all this stuff, I think it is crazy.
You
In
know
my
what's funny? I'll say this. When I learn certain women, I study them just to make sure who they are when they present themselves. I said, does this woman have the skills of a wife Because they can say this all day and say, oh, I'm a wife and this and that, but you can't come to me and say you're a wife, and then I find out after analyzing you, you can't tell me you're a wife and you got minimum wage wife skills. It's not gonna work, honey. You better go to wife school or something, because that's not gonna work for a lot of guys. We're looking for the skills to care for a family, especially
No, it's
those
not.
who are. It's
It's
not
not
just
really. It's not the skills. I'm telling you. Like women, I shouldn't even be giving women these games because they should
You
know this.
need to.
you
But
You
need
need to
listen,
to.
multiply that
let,
thing, bro.
let
We
me give
suffer
you.
in this country. They
Let,
suffer.
let me
They
let
cry
me
on
tell.
TikTok.
I'm gonna tell you 100% the truth. My wife did not know how to make macaroni and cheese or soul food when I met her. But you know what she said? She had a humbling. I would put my wife's macaroni and cheese against anybody's wife today because she had a humbling spirit and she
Yeah.
humbled herself, saying, I'm willing to make and learn anything. I don't care if I got to do, make 4-5 batches. I'm going to learn what my man like because I know that this he want. And you know what she doing? I was like, why is she making macaroni and cheese? Because she was trying to perfect it for me. So I don't have to have a woman that have all the skills. I got to have a woman that's humble enough to be able to say, I'm willing to learn these things because this is what my man wants. And so that's what I'm saying. If you got a woman that's coachable and teachable, we won't talk about this, right?
Coachable,
A woman that's
coachable. That's the word I would say. Coachable. Yeah,
coachable and
yeah.
teachable, and the woman that says, you know what, how can I do it? Like, what do you like? When you make that cornbread, you like yours a little sweet, or you like it a little bit like if she's willing to be a student to learn how to serve you, that woman can make it. Because I might that's the thing that I'm looking for.
But
Are
you
you go?
married, bro. You're not seeing it like me. I'm seeing it harder here than
No, but he
you.
trying to get a game away. Y'all pay attention, man. I'm telling you.
Okay.
So yeah, I said it's like a man would love if he can look at his woman and say, hey, you know what, I really didn't like how you made that chicken. I ain't like that. I think, you know, I like my skin a little bit crunchy. Can you dip it in flour and fry it twice? I know some of y'all, that's a southern thing, frying it twice, right? But like her actually being willing to not change her cooking for her, but change it because that's what her man want. A woman would love, a man be like, she's willing to do these things for me, especially in dating. Now, let me tell y'all women, you don't supposed to be doing this with him for 5 years straight and he ain't committed to you. Now, hold on.
Yeah.
I say like
That part.
you supposed to have an expiration date. Like you
Well,
supposed to say, hey, check this out. I've been serving you for 12 months and we don't
yeah,
see marriage in our future. I need to get away from you. Now
yeah,
I'm not
welcome.
telling women to be fools, but I am
Yeah.
saying women should actually be sacrificed to say, I'm willing to really come under this man's authority and under his covering, and I'm willing to change the things that he like because I understand that it's my responsibility to cater to him. When men get that, they say I do all the time when they want to get married.
That's
I,
correct. Because there's really only two issues: a
mhm,
skill issue and a will issue. We
that's
can
it.
fix a skill issue, but I can't fix a will issue. It's got to come from inside.
It's gotta be genuine. If it's not
Yeah.
Right.
genuine, why would I want somebody that
Well,
doesn't like me for me?
it's
It's gonna
and
make
it's
it
not just
harder.
will. It's not will. I want you to be willingly and obediently. It's a scripture in the Bible because there's some people out here they willing but they ain't obedient, and there's some people that's obedient and they're not willingly. I want you to be willingly, not only willing to do it, and also obedient to do it too. Because willingly says I'm willing to make cornbread because he wanted. Obedient is I'm gonna make it how he want me to make the cornbread. So they gotta be willingly and obedient. And I know
No,
that's what
It
I'm
needs to be a
I tell them all the time,
cheerful giver.
obedience is better than sacrifice. I assure you
That's
that.
it. That's it. Shoot. Yeah,
What were you
man.
saying, Jenny?
No, I was just saying that what he's talking about is being a cheerful giver.
Cheerful.
And
Right.
so you want a woman who does it not just because she knows that she's supposed to, but because she actually wants to.
Yep.
and get
Like
excited. Get excited when you're I think women should be excited to serve their man. It should not be a chore. That's the biggest turnoff
that's
to
the
me.
thing. It's been seen as that, and I'm not saying all women are like this. I'm just saying, and I agree with you, brother. I think the problem is, Et, it's just that they don't understand that love for the companionship to give that to a brother that's their husband. I mean, or the future spouse. If that man is giving them the quality of what he's offering is, if he's a good man, he does all the right things. He's not outside running the streets. If he's doing the right things to provide that security and that blanket for her to be under that, why isn't she understanding this role of a woman that could be a wife to him is not understood? That's the thing I'm saying.
You know why she ain't understanding? Because she ain't willing to give them deuces. giving them dudes like you can't
Yeah.
force if a woman make it like if she make, oh my God, I gotta cook for you again. Get away from that woman. Look, I just tell like
Yeah.
I tell people all the time is like we need to be slow. We need to be slow to hire, quick to fire. I
I
tell people
like
that.
that. I like that. I'm gonna take that.
Now let me be transparent because I don't want nobody to clip this and say I'm not telling a husband to fire his wife. That's not what I said. I'll
Okay.
talk about in the vetting pro. Let me be clear. I think y'all should stay together forever. I know people don't want to go with that, but I'm talking about in the vetting process. You shouldn't be quick to give her that title, but you should be quick to get rid of her if it's those things that it's like a Troy. Like I seen this dude, he was like, I'm waiting for her to change. For what? Y'all been dating for 2 weeks. Why are you waiting for her to change? Go ahead and find somebody who at least got the foundation that y'all can build upon.
Mm-hmm. Pretty much.
So, Obi, I see that you joined. Are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. Thanks for having me up, y'all. I just been kind of listening. I just wanted to say, E-Man, you've been cooking. Everything you've been saying, I'm 100% in agreement with you. The only thing I wanted to add, I haven't heard anything about, I heard a lot of Bible at the beginning, but since the subject has kind of changed, I haven't heard anything like grace. I haven't heard that word. Like I heard, E-Man, you were saying the exact thing, but I just haven't heard it say it in that sense, giving
But I
people
don't
grace. I
see that
think,
that.
go ahead.
But some people ain't gonna like what I say because I don't think it's a lot of grace in dating and vetting. I don't have a lot of grace for you. I got a lot of grace for my wife. Let me tell you, I got so much grace for my wife. Maybe that's why she gets so much grace because they ain't have no grace through the vetting process, right? Because I get what people say like. It's almost like I'm not. You go out there, we dating, and you go sleep with somebody else. There's no grace for that. It's just no grace for a lot of that kind of stuff. So when we start talking about grace, I don't understand how grace show up in the vetting process because
Okay, so let me
you're making.
explain. So what you're describing is something just going bad, but I didn't hear that during the conversation. I heard how many kids this person may have, or I don't like their hair, like superficial things, small things. I even think like, to be honest, I've never seen anyone struggling about a relationship over some cooking, over something as simple as cornbread. Like I feel like if you arguing over food, then it's really a much deeper problem that's not being addressed in the relationship.
Well,
Like
no,
food,
I
like
got you. Well,
that's
hold on.
small.
That's perfect. I love what you said. What do you think people are arguing about then?
I've seen people, those type of things have come out, but they're just not addressing the real issue. And I think that kind of comes down to, like you said, wanting what their eyes see, not, their actual, what they can garner with their worth, not just facing reality. It's kind of like y'all touched on proximity, those type of things.
But I get what you're saying. I'm asking you a very direct question for a reason. Like, I think you've been dating. Why do you think people are separating or what people are arguing about? Because
The main things then, financial and then unrealistic expectations. So the guy who wants the same woman that the NBA player gets, or the dude in the club, or the guy who's never made any mistakes and he graduated college at 22 and immediately went to law school at 23 and didn't make any mistakes and immediately got that $70,000-$80,000 job right off the bat. Like I'm in Texas, like Dolo TV. So I mean, I see those type of things, but I feel like if you're operating within your parameters, you're good. So I'll reiterate it and I'll let you go. Unrealistic expectations and finances, and both of those things kind of go together.
I think finances should never be a problem in your relationship. And I know people say, "How can you say that? That's such an arrogant statement." Everybody call me arrogant. I'm okay with that. Listen, finances should never be a problem because I was able to afford myself before I got you. And if you can't afford yourself before you got a woman, you don't need no woman, right? But let me tell you what happened to me. My wife, I had a roommate. We was in a 700 square foot apartment. When we start dating and we start getting serious, and she had to come move into that. We didn't go move into 1200. I didn't care what her situation was. She was going to live under what I could afford. And I think if men start saying we're going to live, I don't care if she makes six figures. We're going to live because what me and my wife did, we lived off my income and we invested her income until she became a stay-at-home mom. We lived off mine and invested hers. I'm trying to tell people is finance should never be a problem because she knows that you're gonna maintain that same lifestyle you had when you met her. So she
So
said,
when
"Hey,
I
we
say
staying."
finances, I feel like we got to kind of speak in reality. Most African American men is what I'm looking at on the panel. Don't have an education. No matter even if you have something like a basket weaving degree, as they call it, if you look at the average income, it raises your income to at least 55,000. Most of us don't have that. Most of us are looking to date on 35 to 40,000, and that's in the South. It's even worse probably in New York. I don't know. Maybe someone can speak in the chat who's from a LA or something like that on what it costs to survive. But most of us, the reality is most people don't have their stuff together. Like that's just reality. So to just everyone to just skim over that part, I think we're not speaking in truth.
I heard what you said, and I don't want to be disrespectful, but my phone's dying. Let me switch to my laptop. I'll be right back to respond to that. Okay.
Cool.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yeah, I haven't heard any of those things. You know, what are some of the things that I heard Dolo TV you were saying what you were looking for, but what are some of your struggles? Like it can't be just all perfect. And if it's all perfect, then I wouldn't understand. I'm in Dallas just like you. So I don't understand what the struggle would be. You know, if the financial, if you are that guy, because I don't know, maybe you are. If you are that gentleman who graduated and got the bachelor's degree right at 22 and immediately start working, and maybe went no further than that, but you just got the degree at the right age, you work, you garnered that experience, and you know now you're making that 80, 90,000. I don't understand how you would even have a problem dating in Texas.
Well, I'm gonna keep it above with you, sir. You know, it's been a lot of conversations on this topic, like in Dallas, you know, in DFW. It's just been so many similar things of what we've been saying for years, and I mean, it happened even before COVID. I think the problem here is the mindset is kind of caught up onto the culture, is which is followed on the whole mindset of the independence. You know what I'm saying? I don't want to pick somebody that doesn't want me. I mean, they only don't need me. They just want me as a person that they're saying, someone's scratching. Is that you, man? Scratching. There you go.
No, that's I
That's
think that
it?
was our pain, but
Okay.
he muted up.
Okay.
Our pain's on the show.
Gotcha.
Can you guys hear me or no?
We can hear you either, man. Go ahead.
Yeah.
All right.
But all I was saying was, in DFW, it's not the saying that the women are all bad here. It's just that the expectation is such a, how do I put this? They want this lifestyle to put us on this pedestal to say, well, you have to have this to be up here. But it's like we don't, some of us are not even there yet. And I'm not trying to say we can't get that. It's just, can you work with me to get there? Can you be understanding of a man that's working hard? Because I'm not saying every man's going to be a six-figure earner, because everybody's not going to be a six-figure earner. Let's be real. And that's not something that we should focus on. We should focus on is stability. Is he making a lifestyle that's affordable and not a lavish lifestyle that makes it so much hard he can't see his kids? Because I tell people all the time, I'd rather not be that six-figure guy, because you know why? I miss the opportunity to see my kids being raised with my spouse who be at home like Miss Jenny doing homeschool, because I'd rather be a part of that child's life to raise them and also make a business closer to home, because I want to be a part of my child's upbringing, because my parents, they didn't do that with me. You know what I'm saying? And most ladies reject the homeschool thing, and that's one of my biggest things. And the Christians, it's not non-Christians, it's Christians that reject that, and they're women. You know what I'm saying?
So when you say homeschool, that's homeschool as money lost. So if you're saying I don't understand really realistically, how can you make it without making six figures in Texas if someone's going to be a stay-at-home mom?
I know
families. I'm not saying you can't. Go ahead.
I know families that homeschool without that amount that you're thinking about. They don't need six figures to make a family work with homeschooling. You got to have a plan in mind that can work. It doesn't have to be all the money and you're not seeing your kids as much as you're at work. You know what I'm saying? You're more at work than your family. You know what I'm saying?
Fair enough.
Go ahead, Eda, man. You wanted to reply to OB's question?
Yeah. So I'm different. When I talk to women, I think men should have a foundation. Like, so the foundation is not six figures, right? The foundation is I am able to sustain my lifestyle by myself. What does that mean? That means that I can pay my own rent, I can pay my own light bill, I can pay, and I understand that men have roommates. I'm not saying discount that guy, but someone who is adulting effectively. So I think women should have that baseline. If a man cannot support himself, a woman is delusional and she think that he's going to be able to support him too, her too. So I think the baseline that women should is, can he sustain his own lifestyle? And if he can, women got to ask themselves a question: will I fit into his lifestyle as it currently is? Like, I don't think women should be a burden on men. Like, say for example, if he got roommates, can you move into that room with him? Can you find your space in his closet? Can you find your space in that dresser? Like, okay, he got a dresser. Can you find your clothes on side of that? I think women actually supposed to add to what a man currently got. It shouldn't be a burden on men, if that makes sense.
I like that. I don't think. How old is, I hear roommates? How old is too old for a roommate? I like everything you said, but I don't know if it's kind of the reality, but I like it. So how old is too old for a roommate?
I don't think it's a such thing. I think we've been lied to. I think we definitely been lied to. So one thing I do is I am a signing agent. My goal is I go to people's houses when they sign for houses, right? And when I get a chance to go to these other people, other races outside of the Black community, I see men 25 years old who've been stand with his parents from 18 to 25, and he about to get married in 6 months. Once he get married, he spent $175 on a down payment on his first house. I seen it. So this idea that I have to be, and the whole point that I'm saying, this idea that I am less of a man because I have a roommate, I think is a fallacy. I had a roommate all the way up until I met my wife, and I was making over 6 figures with a roommate because I was minimizing my expenses. So I don't think, that's why start asking women for their credit and be willing to show your credit. Because if a man got 300,000 in the bank, and I'm being outrageous, but if he got, let's say, 100,000 in the bank and he got a roommate, he's a better option than the dude who got 0 and he got his own house. Like, I think people need to understand how to make business decisions when it comes down to their spouse, but it's still a spiritual component.
I agree with that 100%. But at the same point in time, if I'm making 6 figures, and I'm not saying anything you said is wrong, I'm in 100%, but I think you're a very rare breed. And I think why a lot of people are going to say that, I mean, you make 6 figures here in Texas, you can get a nice place in the suburbs for 12, 1300. That's a nice size 1-bedroom. You probably got ceiling fans in the hallway. It looks like a hotel when you walk inside of your apartment. $75,000 here in Texas after taxes, that's about $4,000 a month. You still got $3,000 left to do kind of what you need to do. That extra, $1,300 that I'm gonna save, like, that's really not gonna affect anything in the long run on savings.
Really
like, that's not gonna make me any richer.
You really don't agree with him then? You really don't agree with him? That's
No,
what you're
I
saying.
agree with what he's saying. I
No,
think
well,
it's
well, hold
good,
on,
but I'm
brother.
saying I wouldn't.
This is all pain. Let me just say
finish.
this, because I know
Go
you've
ahead,
been
go ahead.
talking. Because I
No.
want to say one thing. Either man, I have never been more in concert with anything you said before in my whole life, man. You were 100% spot on in everything you're saying right now tonight. And being that practical, that's, the fact that being practical is quote unquote rare, that's the shame of it all, especially for us. And the thing you said about a man ready for marriage, you have to base everything in your marriage on what you could afford to do. And part of the vetting process is that the woman has to be willing to live under that covering until you expand. And if she doesn't want to live under that covering, then she eliminates herself. It's just that simple. I mean, so we keep complicating this thing. When either man says if he had a roommate and he's making 6 figures so he could bank, that extra $1,200 or $1,300 could be worth thousands and thousands in a year or 2,000. So you got to be the practical thing of the matter, right? It might not be what you want to do as a man who's grown, but it's nothing wrong with having a roommate if that's the way you're living, because it's not going to be forever, right? Because I'm sure him and his family don't live with that roommate right now.
Absolutely not. But the
So-
best thing I could have had in my life is I had a mentor. My mentor told me when I was making over 150 grand, he told me the money was superficial and I would not going to be making that money 3 years from now. That's what he told me. Let me tell you, he was 100% wrong. He was wrong. But he planted the mindset that I had needed to be a minimalist because this was going to be the best
I was. So it wasn't that I couldn't afford it. I was thinking that this was just a season of my life and it was going away. I really thought that it was nothing in my mind that thought that I was still going to be making this, 6-7 years later. But what happened was it gave me the right mindset of investing. And that's what I think he was trying to plant into me. Because even if I would have went back to making 40,000, me actually sacrificing those 3 years, I can live off my investments over those 3 years. I can't. And so that's the whole point is it's not about you can, but what if things go wrong? Are you planning to be successful if you go back to 50,000? If you got to go back, like if you have to be in a situation where you went back to where you was making the average income, did those 3 years of the best 3 years of your life make an impact on your life for the rest of your life? And I think men don't just think that far ahead. And so I think that's the difference between how we think.
In other words, he created a sense of urgency in you and made you take advantage of this situation. That makes sense. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the stage. Michi, what's happening, man?
What's up?
What's up?
Hey, Jenny.
Hi, Michi.
I just wanted to say about that, like, money, finances, it won't matter to me because the woman I'm gonna be with, she's gonna ride with me no matter what. She's gonna play a role. She's gonna thrive, like when she's home, cooking and cleaning, and she'll be happy with her role, and I'll be happy with mine. Be the best man that I can be for myself and for my woman, future woman.
You know what, Edom, I think is a part that I think a lot of people are missing out. Everybody's worrying about what you're going to do in this particular nuclear family. I don't think we're actually counting on the extended family as well, too, because we use that all the time, like grandparents and aunties and uncles and stuff like that. Most of the time, it's usually the grandparents when mom or dad or something like that at work, and the grandparents keep the kids from time to time. I think that's important because your kids will learn lessons from your grandparents. They won't learn from you. And I think that's important. So as far as when you decide to build a family, I think we need to start taking that into consideration as well, too, before we get married, because you have to remember you're joining two families together. So these are going to be the people who are going to be your village that you're going to have to draw from time to time, because if not, you're going to stress each other out. I'm pretty sure Jenny's folks are going to be nearby when the baby's ready. And am I not right, Jenny? Yes, I know, because you're going to need that. Because I think the family is more than what we bank on. We always want to worry about, the money, but generally it's usually not the money, it's the support and the help I think most people are needing, and the money just one of the things we use as an excuse to think that it's gonna fix it when it's really not. It's the support. So I think when either man spoke to it, money does answer a lot of things. But for the most part, it's the support that people need. Jenny, did you want to say anything? Either man, did you want to say anything?
I go right after her. Go ahead, Jenny.
Well, this is a very riveting conversation. I appreciate everyone who's come up, but it is getting past my bedtime. So I'm going to have to ask for you guys' final thoughts. And so if you could all give a wrap up and let people know where they can find you, if you guys have your own channels or anything like that.
So let me go first because I got to get off real quick. This is
Yeah.
our pain. Hey, listen,
Congratulations, Arpain. Before you
thank
go.
You. Say what?
I say congratulations, man, on your 37th.
Yeah, man, it's my
years,
37th anniversary. So the wife is sleeping. We're hanging out.
Wow.
So yeah.
Yes,
So
indeed.
anyway, listen, I'm on marriage, politics, and sports. I just had to come up for a second and support Jenny and to tell Eda, man, after all the conversations we had together, I finally found something that we could agree 100% on. So I had to say something. I felt compelled. Anyway, hey, thanks for letting me up. Hey, salute to the panel. Good night.
Appreciate it, Arpain. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you.
Dolo TV.
Yeah, Jenny, I appreciate the opportunity coming on your show, and Lost in Translation. Appreciate you seeing you as well. It was a good conversation tonight on my Saturday. I appreciate y'all hearing me and my perspective. And Eda, man, I appreciate you speaking your mind, brother. You got me thinking about some things, and and I appreciate the perspective. It makes me want to start doing some evaluation. Maybe I should start considering some things. Nothing wrong with evaluating to get better, right? But I appreciate you guys, and I definitely appreciate this talk, and it made me think about some things. But again, thank you guys for having me on, and I appreciate the opportunity to be here tonight.
Thank you. It was a good contribution that you had.
Michi, tell the folks how they can find you, brother.
Me Meet You Project Live. That's my channel on YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook. And, I came late to the party. I need to come early next time.
That's right. You got to have the notifications on.
I appreciate you, Jenny. Appreciate you.
Thank you. I appreciate
Thank you for coming out. Either Man, go ahead and tell the folks how they can find you, brother.
Yeah, so I have a channel that's called Either Man Williams. I just making being a husband great again. I think we get so much of a bad side of who black men is as as fathers, as husbands, and it's just a narrative out there that we're doing the wrong things. So on my page, you're gonna see me at the park with my daughter. You're gonna see us on vacation. It's just showing a different avenue of what the black man is actually doing in marriage, and I just kind of wanted to do that. I do want to give some quick final thoughts. I want to respond to what Lost in Translation said, because I think that's more important than the money. He's 100%. Is the people around you. I'm gonna tell you right now, you're gonna need your village to stay in love. I know people don't believe in love and all this stuff, but for you, listen, you need that village when you and your wife need to go out on that date night. And when y'all need to look in each other's eyes again and be able to remember why y'all chose each other. And I'm telling you, you're going to need that village more than you know, especially when you have those kids. So let's not just think of money. Let's look at the total picture. And absolutely, I would feel more comfortable dropping my kids off at a nuclear family, husband and wife, that I believe that my kids will have a balanced outlook on life than some mama who can't get no man and now she influencing my daughter. So I think you need to know that you're not marrying just this woman. You also marry her whole family, and do what I did. I know it sounds crazy. I think men should actually take their mother-in-law or their future mother-in-law out on a date, because I don't care what you think, your wife is going to become that woman. So you need to see what your wife is going to be 20 years from now. And if the mama, I get God can do miracles and some people are that, but if that woman crazy, I'm telling you right now, your wife is coming next. But that's just my opinion.
I don't know. I mean, I think generally speaking, that is probably really good advice. But I'm glad my husband didn't take that advice, because I wasn't raised by my mom. So I'm not very much like my mom.
Yeah. Like we understand that there's exceptions to the rule. But the one thing, I'm telling men this. If you think that this woman spent 18 years with this woman and she haven't had some kind of influential way of her ways, you are crazy. Take that. Say, hey, you mind if I take your mama? You mind if I take your mama on lunch? Start talking to her, and don't talk to her about her child, because she's gonna lie to you about her child, because she's trying to get her child. Talk to her about her.
Yeah.
Hey, so, you got divorced from her daddy. Why you laughing? To start having some conversations like that. I promise you, you know what you're gonna do. You're gonna pack your stuff. Baby, I love you, but I just don't think I see a future with you. And I know people think that that's outrageous. But I was just so serious about marriage that I said I'm a vet. Not only her, I'm a vet everything that she came from. I wanted to know who implemented these thoughts into her mind. And so that's just my mind.
Yeah.
Yep. Take her mama on dinner. Start asking about her. Get to know her family for who they is. And you want to understand what she was infected with or what she was cured with. That's just my opinion.
That's a good idea. I was just thinking, I like take her mom out, but also her sister as well.
Her sister, you could do a sister, but her sister doesn't. So when people grow up together, the influence is totally different, because you can have a woman whose sister is just for the streets and she ain't for the streets, right? And they don't even hang out together. I just think the mom, like even like if her father's present. Like I remember my first time actually going out with my father-in-law before he was my father-in-law, and I was asked him a question. Why should I choose your daughter?
That's right.
What strengths have you put in your daughter that she is worthy of being my wife? You know, that man, if he's any other man, he should respect that. He shouldn't take that as disrespect that you feel like you want to have a conversation with him. And you know, he talked about, he said, I trained this woman since she was young that she supposed to serve it. If you get a father who said that he done trained this woman to serve you, if he said that I was thinking about you, I remember having this conversation. He said I was thinking about her future husband before she was able to have a husband. I'm telling you, if you really start vetting, and this is a whole nother conversation. I know, Jenny, it's your bedtime. I gotta go. But the whole point that I'm telling you is, if you really start vetting the people that raised her, I'm telling you, man, you'll really find out who that person is. And that pretender that they put in there, that don't even matter because they're gonna do it. And you know why? The parents ain't gonna have a reason to lie to you. She got every reason to deceive you. Most parents don't have a reason to lie to you. Why would her mama lie about herself? She ain't dating you.
Yeah, that's interesting. That's really pretty good advice, I would say.
Makes sense.
Jenny, it's on you, darling. Wrap that thing up.
Oh, you don't have any final thoughts, Lost?
Well, I'm in agreement with either man. You know, sometimes you gotta look a man in the eye and ask him, do he stand behind his product? You know what I'm saying? What work did you put into it? You know what I'm saying? Because my thing is, if I have grandkids, guess who they coming to stay with? They coming to stay with you. So I hope you did what you were supposed to do, because turnabout is fair play. You know what I'm saying? So my whole thing is this. Yeah.
I know you do your final thoughts. I apologize.
No, you
You'd be
good.
surprised how many men told me their daughters wouldn't shit. I know that sound. I literally talk with people, father. It's like, man, bro, I stay away from her. You'd be surprised when a man get one-on-one with you. He'll tell you not to get with his daughter. He'll tell you.
Yeah, I believe it. I believe it. That's why I tell men always, man, make sure that you vet the family too, man, not just a woman, because that's gonna be your future family too. You know, you're gonna be married into that family, and also get her around your folks so they can sniff out her too. Because sometimes we get to overlooking things and we don't see red flags because we too busy trying to see green flags.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So sometimes you got to get them around people that you trust, who can help you look past, you know, your blind spots. I mean, that's what family does. But for the most part, being a husband and wife is not an easy task. I think if you're looking to be married, I think you probably should be educating yourself on what you should be doing, how to take care of each other, how to talk to each other, you know, how to practice giving grace to other people, how to practice giving mercy to other people, you know, when to cut things off, you know, when to start things back up. It's practice. And once you get into the relationship, it should be second nature. You know what I mean? It should be second nature for you to listen to your spouse gently and calmly. It should be second nature to give your wife mercy and grace. You know what I'm saying? So that's the reason why you should practice that every single day. So when you get with your wife, it's not an act. It's something that comes natural to you. So that's my final thought, and to help us make better families and better marriages.
Well, that's solid. And so, yeah. So that is our stream for this evening, friends. As you saw by the title, we talked about marriage obligations, and the panel came up, and we talked about, you know, I guess we kind of ventured off from marriage obligations to, you know, good ways of dating and vetting and proper ways of, you know, looking for you want to, you know, who is going to have all the proper, you know, duties and do what they're supposed to do. So I feel like that came pretty full circle. And so, yes, if you missed anything tonight, then just take away slow to hire, quick to fire. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, that means you got to go back and catch up on what you missed from the stream. And so I hope that all of you are subscribed to Black Man Unfiltered, who allows me to get up on his platform every other week and speak my mind and say pretty much whatever I want. I've never given him a topic that I wanted that he rejected. So we love and advocate of free speech. And so make sure you like the video and subscribe to him so that way he can keep putting out smaller content creators and giving them a foot up. And then when you're done subscribing to him, come on over to Mrs. Jenny's channel and be sure to subscribe over there and push the bell so that way you're always notified when I'm going live, because I have schedules of when I'm supposed to go live, but that schedule is kind of flimsy. And so I might go live an hour later. I might go live the next day. So, you know, you got to just be on your toes when it comes to me. So, as I'm sure Beat can attest to. But yes, friends, thank you all for watching. Be sure to leave a like on your way out. And if you missed anything, then come back and watch it, and leave a comment when you're watching the playback. So that way YouTube knows that this is good content that they need to be putting out in the algorithm. But I am Mrs. Ginny. I thank you all for watching. Catalea, Abraham, Hunting Wisdom, Josh, Bossman, and all the panelists that were here. Thank you all for contributing and making the show what it is. And so I am headed to bed because, you know, got church in the morning, right? Come on, everybody. Got church in the morning. So I got to get my beauty rest. But I look forward to talking to you guys again real soon. Bye.